7th, and we'll start with a mic check, please.
Here you go. Chair Gradine.
Here.
Scott Hopkins.
Here.
Tip Kung. Courtney J. Miller. Oh, I'm sorry. Stephanie Poole.
Here.
We have quorum.
All right, thank you. And we'll start, as we always do, with public comment. Seeing no one, we'll go on to approval of the minutes for the Architectural Board for November 23rd. And we'll take comments on those minutes, starting with item 1 or anything before item 1. Item 2. I have a couple of comments on item 2. On page 3, under the motion number 2, it should be after the show, all caps, SHO, instead of straw vote. And on page 4, under the motion, I think we've got some repetition there. So I would just cross out 6 and 7, because we've already stated that the flat roof was the preferred solution. And then number 9, you just cross out the number because it really all comes under comment 8. Okay. The roof I'll just read it. The roof configuration on the south side of the addition should be a straight shed roof, period. 2 smaller hip roof elements should be removed from the elevation. That's one comment.
Should be removed, okay.
Yeah, should be removed from the elevation. And then 10 would become 9. Okay, that's all I have on 2. Anybody else on 2? Number 3. Number 4. 5. Or 6. I have a comment on 6. Under the motion number 2, provide sizes for each of the proposed tile paving configurations. All right. If there's no more comments, we'll take a first and a second for approval of the minutes.
I wasn't there, but I'll give it a first.
Thanks, Scott. We need a second.
Second.
Seconded by Tip. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
I'm abstaining because I wasn't here for that meeting.
Stephanie is abstaining. Okay. Approval of the consent calendar for November 30th.
Mr. Chair, item A at 23 Hitchcock Way was granted project design approval and final approval as submitted. Item B, 1528 Anacapa Street, project design approval and final approval with condition. Item C, 3925 State Street is granted final approval as submitted. Those were reviewed by Chair Gradine and Courtney J. Miller.
Okay, we need a first and a second for the approval of the minutes for November 30th, the consent calendar.
First.
Second.
Scott and Stephanie, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. And on to consent calendar for December 7th.
Item A at 20 East Coda Street was continued indefinitely to consent, and item B at 3005 State Street was granted project design and final approvals as submitted. Those were reviewed by Chair Gradine.
Need a first and second, please.
Motion to approve.
Stephanie.
Second.
Seconded by Courtney. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. All right. Announcements.
Yes. Board members Fitzgerald, Tripp, and Witosh will be absent from today's meeting. Board member Poole will step down from item 1 at 915 West Valerio Street. And board member Miller will step down on item 4 at 120 South Hope Avenue. That's all I have.
I know that City Council is electing the 2 open spots that are coming up on the board. When will we know that? Tomorrow?
tomorrow.
But we have you, and then we have another person, right?
Stephanie's,
Not running.
I'm stepping down.
Yeah, so we have you, and we have another person, so that pretty much.
well, I
leaves
have
you.
to be re-elected by the council. It's not automatic.
But that's the only two we have on.
Yes,
running.
that's correct, yeah.
Okay.
And does anyone know, do we have a number of applicants?
I believe I sent an email about with the list of all the names of.
Only two.
I missed that.
Only two names.
Only two. Okay, all right.
You're going to serve another tour of duty?
I don't remember
Looks
seeing
like
that
it.
either.
Yep, unfortunately for all of you. Subcommittee reports. None. Okay. So we have a comment from Mr. Limon happening today? No, not today. All right. Well, then we're ready for our first item, which is 915 West Valerio. We're a few minutes early, so we'll take a pause until the applicant shows up.
Are they out in that corridor, perhaps? or-
Get out of town, be good to me, please. Why wish me harm? Why not retire to a farm and be content?
No. I'm going to be here. Is that you? Well, we're just here for comments.
Oh, I know, but staff has looked at these as a prelim plan. check.
All I did really was address the items that you pointed out in your email.
Okay, so we'll have you fill out a form afterwards.
Yeah, perfect.
All right, so we're reopening the meeting for 915 West Valerio Street. And this is a new item, project we haven't reviewed before. It's a proposal to demolish an existing 324 square foot two-car garage and an as-built 134 square foot shed at the rear of a 7,500 square foot parcel, and to construct a new 547 square foot two-car garage with a 597 square foot one-bedroom dwelling unit above. There will also be 147 square feet of accessory storage space on the ground level and a deck at the second level. Fireplace and other miscellaneous items. And this is comments only. Project requires environmental assessment and a staff hearing officer review. Hi. Greetings. Welcome.
Thank you.
And your name for the
It's
record,
Robert
please.
Pester,
Hi, Robert.
architect of the owner.
And if you could just walk through the photos, maybe just
Yeah,
get an
sure.
idea of what's there.
So this is the existing house from the street from Valerio. It's right at the intersection of Valerio and Pampas. And then this is a view of the backyard that shows the as-built storage and the existing garage that we're going to take down. This is kind of a view across the yard from the other direction. There's the... So this is the garage, and that's the storage building that's going away.
Okay.
And this is just a little bit, this is taken from this corner of the parcel looking back this way. So,
This one.
so we're getting the garage, and there's the storage unit, there's the house.
Okay.
So, some of the neighborhood. This is the residence immediately adjacent, which has a two-story detached dwelling behind it over a garage.
Okay.
And then this is the neighbor on this side, which sort of shares the driveway. You can kind of see there's this wide driveway. It used to be the Pampas right-of-way. So
Okay.
that's just one story.
And that's the driveway right there? Is that the shared driveway, or is it?
That's correct. That's on the neighbor side, so you can kind of see the owner's truck in the back there. This is the residence immediately across Pampas from the property.
Mm-hmm.
And then this one is kitty corner. I'm remembering this right? Yep. And what you'll see on this one, so this is from Valerio. This is a view from the corner of Pampas and Valerio. And this is from Pampas looking at its two-car garage with a dwelling over it. So there's sort of context for this kind of development in this neighborhood.
Okay. Thank you.
There's also an existing deck that we're going to clip off the back here. we're keeping the existing driveway, and we're going to swing into the garage this way. The reason that we're going in front of the staff hearing officer is we're requesting a modification for the second dwelling to only have one open parking space instead of two that transportation typically requires. But we've designed the new dwelling to 600 square feet, which is the same square footage as an accessory dwelling in R2, which only can be done in a parcel that's 5,000 to 6,000 square feet. This one's 75. So it's a larger parcel, but we're working into the same guidelines for the
As
dwelling
R2.
itself. You mentioned, as you're reading the description, that there's an existing non-conforming masonry fireplace in the back that we're going to take out. This is the open yard space. This deck is only 21 inches high, so it can encroach into that. And we're substantially over the 1250 requirement.
So to meet the parking, you would need one other uncovered parking space, is that correct?
Yeah, and we just couldn't really see an efficient way to do that on this parcel because of the way the driveway is oriented and the house is pushed back. It's a little snug. Planning requested that I provide a floor plan of the existing because we have a laundry room in the new garage, on this part of the new garage for the existing house, which is taking place of the as-built laundry in the shed out here. And then we're providing a new laundry in the separate space for the rental dwelling.
Okay.
So there's no laundry in the existing dwelling. So first floor, two-car garage with a required 20-foot by 20-foot parking area. And then this accessory storage space, we're going to use this for trash and recycle for the main dwelling. And also laundry and a laundry sink. And then this is dedicated to the accessory, or the secondary dwelling. There's their trash, washer, dryer. So you would come in off of the parking space for the second dwelling, go through this little gate into the little courtyard, and up these stairs and land at a deck that leads to the entry of the house here. So we've got a small deck, and then one sort of great room space, small kitchen, bath, one bedroom.
All right.
So the architecture of the existing house is sort of nondescript, and we just went to match it in terms of materials. The roof pitch is 4.5 and 12. We got 12-inch overhangs with exposed rafter tails. It basically just mimics the existing building. It's just 2 stories. So this is the view as you're coming down the driveway, where I cantilevered the second floor over the garage door, give a little articulation and get us a little more space up there. This is the gate into the entry to the second dwelling, which you would go up the stairs. As you go up the stairs, the wall that faces the open yard area sort of does a little ziggurat up to the deck level. And then I made the wall at the top of the deck 6 feet for privacy, because this elevation backs up to Harding School.
Uh-huh.
And then this is the existing dwelling beyond from the rear. And this is a section through the existing dwelling.
What is the cantilever at the
It's 22 inches.
20?
So we're substantially below the height requirement. We've got solar access. There's the little fireplace that's going away. It's going to be standard plaster. It's got to be a very cost-effective project, so we're going with vinyl windows and composition shingles.
Windows on the existing house, are those vinyl as well?
He has swapped out some of them. Some of them are the original steel windows. Some of them are aluminum sliders. It's kind of a hodgepodge. We're going to get to that building later, at a different time.
Okay. All right. Do you have anything else to show us there? Looks like we got one more.
Well, these are just the CAD elevations. I'm going to give a little crisper view. There's the roof plan, simple hip. And then some sections through the building. at different points. This is through the deck, and this is through the stairs and the storage, looking back at the house. That's it.
All right. Very good. So we'll open public comment. I see no one. We'll go to questions from the board. Any questions? Scott?
Has the staff approved, or are they willing to approve the reduction in parking?
They have indicated that they would support that.
Okay.
It's contingent on the staff hearing officer and, of course, your comments.
Okay. And is there kind of a delineated path of travel from the sidewalk to the rear unit?
Oh, from the street?
Yeah.
Well, this is a really wide driveway. Down here, it's 16 feet. So you would be able to come down.
Is that an existing concrete driveway?
It's gravel.
Oh, it's gravel.
It's
Okay.
going to be concrete.
It's going to be concrete.
Stamped concrete. Yeah.
Okay. And when you come into the little gate here, the trash cans are exposed, but I guess they're behind the door when you open the door. So
Yeah,
they're-
yeah.
Okay. And then in terms of the detailing for the windows, what do you project there? Kind of flush-mounted vinyl windows? Are you going to recess them?
We'll recess them. They'll be flush on the inside.
Okay.
Got 2x6 walls upstairs, so we'll get a
Okay.
little bit of
Okay.
reveal.
Those are my questions. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Tip? Questions?
No question.
No questions. So comments. Do you have any comments, Courtney?
No.
Okay. Scott?
I think the architectural style's okay. Matching the front is never a bad idea. It feels like a slightly more tuned-up, slightly more modern version of the front from your drawings, at least. I like the idea of recessing the windows. I don't think it would be acceptable to have them just flush without any other detailing. So in terms of the composition, I think it's well composed, and the massing, I think, is pretty acceptable. It seems like a straightforward, fairly clean project that I could probably support.
Thank you.
Okay. Tip?
Yeah, I guess the thing that I'm troubling the most about this is that I think this is a chance for you to make the approach to the garage a little bit easier. And I'm just looking at the drawings, and I'm not sure how can someone get in and out of the garage. You pretty much have to back all the way out to the street to get out because there's no turnaround space.
That's what he does now.
And when I look at the older version, it seemed like you have about 20-something feet when the garage back here. And I'm just looking at that. This is a chance to, if you do a brand new building, maybe address that issue, especially now you have 3 parking spaces.
We need to have you stay over here because this is where the camera
I'll
is.
come right back. I wanted to see what Tip was commenting on. With respect to, there's a different dimension on this plan?
Keep it in front of the camera.
No, I'm just looking at the set that you submitted. When you look at the garage, the background, you have 16 feet before you hit the main house. That's the dimension you've shown.
Yeah, well, that's to the overhang, so there's
Right.
another 22 inches.
16 feet, right, to that. And then I look at that, and then you have an additional car. So that's my main concern about how, obviously, it will be a challenge to get out of the site, in my opinion. Just all the cars coming in here. So that's one issue I have a concern with. And I think, and the reason I'm saying that, because it seems like you have a lot of room to make it better for the end users. The next comment I have had to do with, and I know obviously probably no one can see it. I think it's all right, but I'm just a little troubling with the cantilever of the second story, how it worked with the first floor. It just looked a little heavy-handed compared to the size and the scale of the existing house, which is fairly simple. And I don't mind the second story. I think it's fine. I don't mind the program you're having it. I just feel that the cantilever element Now I know why you did it, because you couldn't bring the garage down anymore because you then get real
Right.
height coming in. And just to be quick, the way the building's situated, creating the massing a little awkward, in my opinion, especially this angle here, looking at the south elevation. And it, and I don't mind function, form follow function, which seemed to be the case in this case, but the function doesn't work too well, in my opinion, in the first place, about how you get in and out the site.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I had one more other comment.
Yes.
Generally, we like to see some sort of demarcation of a pathway for pedestrians to find their way to the second unit. And usually that's striped paving or some sort of change in the paving pattern,
Okay.
score joint, something that kind of demarcates and is kind of a wayfinding element. And presumably you'd have enough space that it wouldn't feel too tight between the parked car and getting to your front door there. Last comment.
Okay. I just have a few comments. We'll start with a question. Have you reviewed this with traffic?
Yeah.
Oh, you have?
No, I have.
And they're okay with this, the back out configuration here?
Yeah.
They are,
Yeah.
okay.
Also, fire has reviewed it.
Okay. This is not really pertinent to the way it appears and the impact to the neighbors and so on, but it does seem like there's a lot of extra room in this laundry storage area, and if you just pulled this wall back a bit, this wouldn't feel so tight, and just a little more generous approach to the new unit. But the other thing, I think more importantly, in terms of the visual impact, is kind of goes along with Tip's comment for me, is what you're going to see from the street and down the driveway is this, the prominent second floor element here. And I could see, the logic of what you did. And it's not bad. I mean, it's not objectionable, except that, the front house does have a little bit of charm. As meager as it might be, with this little bay window that's, got some vertical sliders and then shutters and, so it's got some charm-giving elements to it, whereas this is kind of just utilitarian. And I think that goes along with the cantilever comment. I think that it looks like you've got room with the program that you could still have all the elements that you want in that new space, but have this relate more to the garage door, which again is what you're going to see, the main element you're going to see as you look down that driveway, and have some charm-giving elements occurring that relate it to the front house at that second floor. In other words, you could modify this cantilever. You could break it here and have a little hip roof and do something different that's maybe centered over the garage. Again, just to have it more in keeping with what's happening in the front. So that the property as a whole has continuity to it. So those are comments that we could list, and maybe I'll just summarize them. Because if you get to your modification and the program stays as it is, then you'll be coming back to us, of course.
Sure.
Yeah. So this would be indefinite continuance to the staff hearing officer with the following comments. Number one is provide designated or visually designated pedestrian path of travel to the rear unit. Restudy particularly the second floor element that faces the street, period. Restudy the cantilever, the size and extent of the cantilever, and study adding charm-giving elements that would relate it to the front house. Are there any other comments that I've missed?
Yeah, I just want to, you don't have to do, but I think we should put in a comment that maybe relook at circulation, see where you can improve it. It's just something optional, but I just feel that it might want a second look at based on the layout. It just seemed like a lot of open spaces to the right, and we scram the building to the left, which probably address one of the concern that Mr. Gradian raises about what you can see from the street. And I just feel that there's plenty of room to, with the size of the building like that, to maybe make it flow better. Maybe not, but.
I mean, I guess I see it as a trade-off. You've got a lot of nice open space, but you have to back out.
Yeah,
This is required open yard,
Did
right?
you say it was oversized?
Yeah, we have surplus open yard.
Oh, okay.
However,
I see.
my concern, because we actually studied having the whole building moved over to try to sneak another parking space in. But the problem was the garage door on the two-car garage got too far back around behind the house to really be able to negotiate
And you
it
can't
out.
turn it the other way.
Turn the whole
Turn the
project-
whole building this way?
Because it seems like you have a lot of depth.
That would kill his deck. And there's a bedroom here. This is the kitchen with a window that looks out, a little bathroom. I don't know how we could rotate that. And
I mean, I see.
we're really kind of pushed into the corner.
It's just a comment. I mean, but he knows the project better than us.
Well, and I also studied a version where the second dwelling was separate in the backyard, and we just had a one-car garage, and because it's R2, we could go to a 3-foot setback here, so I could push the garage back into the corner, but that just was going to be way too much. It was going to take up too much. The footprint was going to take up too much of his property.
It's almost, when I look at this, because initially the garage coming in this way, right? And that's where the edge of the garage here. And that allows you 20 feet, I assume, from here to the setback. That's pretty much the width of the garage.
A little better than that.
Yeah. So when I look at this, and then you have a little storage, and I'm thinking if the garage is like this, maybe the unit all here, and then the landscaping can be all right here, and then you can landscape the heck out of it here, and then you just have a driveway in and out, and you can't see from the street, and you still have all the open space between the house. I just look at that when I saw that, but anyway, that's just.
It's a tight rear yard area to get, and you're trying to get a lot in there, and you have that backing out issue, which really constrains you. So, I myself, I don't, there may be some slight tweaks you could do, but I don't know how. I'm not going to try and redesign it for you.
Right? No, I know.
So, but we could add the comment that one board member felt that a restudy of the circulation and parking locations.
If it can be improved, I don't want to force you doing that. Just look at that and come back next time. You say, well, I really look at that. I can't. Then that's fine.
Laura, you have a comment?
I'm the project planner, Joanne LeContier.
Joanne,
So
sorry.
I just wanted to advise you of Transportation's preliminary comments because they said that they were supportive of the one uncovered parking space, the unit based on its small size and the location. And they also said that the parking design is supportable by them. They said that perhaps widening the garage, although not required, would provide for easier access into and out of the garage, but they didn't require that. They just mentioned that. But they said it would function without it having the turnaround area that wasn't part of the proposal, so as it was proposed. And then just asked the applicant to show the dimensions of the floor plan for the garage and also to call out the driveway material. And that's where their comments regarding the parking and whether it would work or not. And speaking directly to the supportability of the mod based on the parking demand for the site and the size of the unit. So,
Okay.
Well, then let's take my comment off. I don't
right.
want to impose it on.
All right.
So remove the fifth comment?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I'll replace it with that the site plan should also show the footprints of adjacent buildings. And when you go to the staff hearing officer, they'll want to see where that neighbor is and where this neighbor is. And if they're 50 feet away, then it's a non-issue. But if they're 15 feet away, they'll want to see those footprints.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So a few
Yes.
other things to add to the motion.
All right. So you want to make that motion?
Sure, I'll offer it.
Okay.
Next time, we'd like to see some landscape drawings and potentially exterior light locations.
Yeah, we'll get those.
Okay.
Landscape, I mean, there isn't that much. There's the existing turf lawn in the front,
Mm-hmm.
and then it's just turf in the back. He's got some fruit trees and vegetable garden growing along on this side. We're not really proposing any ornamental landscaping or irrigation or lighting or anything.
So you're saying it's essentially existing to remain, even this back section here?
I assume that's just going to be gravel or something, since there's a 14-foot high fence that runs along the school property, and there's a 6-foot fence that runs along this edge.
Okay.
So it's really just a utility area more than
Okay.
anything.
Yeah.
I would like to see hardscape, though, and that's typically part of a landscape package.
Okay.
So that's something that we need.
Well, and I've addressed that with the driveway. I'll just articulate that a little more clearly.
Yep.
Okay, so you would need to add the criteria, compatibility criteria analysis, since it's going to the staff hearing officer.
Lovely. Okay. Okay. The board has reviewed the proposed project and compatibility analysis. Criteria have been generally met for this project. Did I read them all off correct? Okay, 1, compliance with city charter and municipal code, general consistency with design guidelines. The proposed development's project design complies with all city regulations and is consistent with ABR guidelines. Number 2, the proposed design of the proposed development is compatible with distinctive architectural character of Santa Barbara and of particular neighborhoods surrounding the project. 3, the size, mass, bulk, and height and scale of the proposed development is appropriate for its neighborhood. 4, the design of the proposed development is appropriately sensitive to adjacent city landmark, designated historic resources, historic sites of natural features, and mitigation measures are adequate to reduce adverse impacts. 5, the design of the proposed project responds appropriately to established public vistas. 6, the design of the proposed development includes and appropriate amount of project open space and landscaping. I think that's a typo. 7, carry forward the ABR comments to the Planning Commission.
Staff hearing officer.
Yeah, to the show.
And the modification is,
Modification is acceptable by the board.
yep. All right, so we have a motion. We need a second.
Second?
Seconded by Tip. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
So did you want the comment about adding a hardscape plan?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. But no landscape. Well-
Landscape/hardscape. You may find the need for a little landscape.
Or at least identify what's existing on the plan so that we're aware of it.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
And Susan, you have a form for me?
So we just need one copy. Did you bring 3?
Just 2.
2?
Okay. I assumed
Looks like
I
we
was
got
leaving
one.
one. I had an extra for Susan. She needed it.
Can you hand those down, please? 7? Okay, we're going to break for 7 minutes. So that's, I was looking at item number 4.
This plan's looking good.
Yep. Your names for the record, please.
Jerry Rucci, the project manager for DMHA. John Kaikano with Dudek.
Troy Spillman, executive pastor at Santa Barbara Calvary Chapel.
Thank you. So this is a new item that we're looking at. It's pretty simple. Proposal to install a radio antenna on top of the existing Vercal building at the center of the roof area over the Calvary Chapel leasehold space. And comments only again, because Planning Commission review is required.
Correct. And maybe I'll just provide a little just background for this project. This is actually a reapproval of the radio antenna. Back in 1995, the city did approve, the Planning Commission did a resolution to install a radio antenna that was an overall height from ground to top of 50 feet and extends roughly about 16 feet above the roof height, which is 33, I think the roof height is 33 feet. So we're back before you because the radio antenna wasn't ever constructed back in the 90s for various reasons. So again, it's just a reapproval of what was considered back in 1995 and approved. And so we have, with Jerry's going to go over where it's located to show its visual perceptions and just how it's laid out on the roof. Okay. So in this first sheet, we're looking at the roof plan of the existing Vercal building. And the roof plan has these gable end roofs that rise up and drop down. In this middle, about the middle of the portion of the building, a little on the Yananali side of the middle of the portion of the building is our two platforms. We're proposing to place the antenna on this one platform that's further inboard and be located at the, gosh, I'm upside down here. What direction are we looking at? I guess the northeast, is that right? Northeast corner of the building, or northeast corner of the platform? And then,
Well, can we just look at the photos so we make sure we're all familiar with the building and
sure.
maybe you can even indicate where it will be visible on the photo.
Sure, John, you want to cover
Sure. We also, I'm not sure if you were provided, we have visual simulations that were also provided as part of the application.
Haven't seen them, no.
Have not seen them?
No.
I have a packet. Do you have one? Okay.
Oh.
The building it's known as the Vercal building. It's roughly 208,000 square feet. It's fairly substantial, it's very large. It's surrounded by non-residential type uses. The city's El Estero waste facility is on two of the sides. I think it's the west and south. The north side is it east or Yalanali Street, which across the street is the rescue mission. To the east is additional industrial type uses. The location of the antenna is on the, it's going to be centered above one of the tenant spaces, the Calvary Chapel. And their tenant space is in the west, I guess the northwest portion of the building. And it's being located in a strategic location, not only to take advantage of existing equipment barriers up there to minimize its perception, but also to minimize any view of the antenna from surrounding areas. And so with those visual sims, you'll be able to see how it's not that apparent out there.
Okay, so is this the Calvary Chapel side of the building?
Correct.
Yes.
That's where the main entrance is, correct?
Yes.
And is that also on your plan? Is that this side?
No.
This right here.
Oh, there, okay. So it is literally back behind here somewhere, and you would see it from this parking area.
I don't believe you would see it. And the visual sims, they show it back behind the.
Yeah, it's
visible from
pretty
the
set
freeway
back.
location.
Yeah.
So because there's this ridge point here, and the antenna sets back almost back to the second ridge, it's really hidden from the immediate view.
Okay, all right.
And then the
Are these the
water
sims
treatment
you're
plant's
talking
over here.
about? These,
Yeah, and there's
these
a couple
four?
from
The red.
Yeah, here you are from the Yalanali Street. So these would be the ones that where it's most prominent.
Okay. So it's kind of hard for the camera to focus in on, but I guess that's where you would see it from the street would be right there.
Correct.
Okay.
Chair,
Yes.
this is I think, so minor, and so why don't we just approve and move it on so we don't have to go through the presentation, because it's just really nothing that we need to look at.
Well, we should look at the drawings. At least.
Yeah, but it's nothing to the drawing, I don't want to waste applicant's time either. I mean, that's my opinion, but.
Okay. Well, we've got a few minutes to kill. We might as well look at the drawings.
Let's get some time.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
may I offer
Tony.
some comments? I'm Tony
Certainly.
Bauman, Assistant Planner, and I'm assigned to work on this project. And this is a little bit different than a typical antenna project coming before the ABR. In the zoning ordinance, there's a chapter on conditional use permits. And with regard to antennas, there's two sections where conditional use permits are applicable to antennas, and one, it's divided into number 1 and number 2. And number 1 is the type of project you all typically see for cell sites. where cell sites may be found exempt from a conditional use permit if the ABR finds no visual impacts. But this one's different because it's an FM radio broadcast antenna. It does have to have a conditional use permit by the Planning Commission. So in this case, the ABR is just asked to weigh in on the aesthetics and give comments to the Planning Commission. And even though this is a very small antenna, it will have to go for the conditional use permit as well as a coastal development permit. And then it can come back to the ABR for an approval. So for a conditional use permit by the Planning Commission is asked to make 4 findings. And one of the findings is with regard to visual impacts. And I have this for you. There's a highlighted section that states what the ABR is supposed to consider and comment on. So that's what staff would request the ABR to do today, is offer comments on those visual impact considerations.
Okay.
And continue it to the Planning Commission.
All right. Thank you. So I'll just read what it says here in the highlighted portion. This is under visual impact. So we should look at the location of the antenna on the site, the color and size, so as to minimize any adverse visual impacts by requiring that the antenna and its supporting structure be designed and placed so as to be visually unobtrusive as possible. Okay. Now you can go on with your presentation.
All right. Looking back at this cover page, as we talked about, the antenna is, we believe, fairly concealed towards the center of the building on the second platform here. The height of the platform is 33 feet 9 inches above the perimeter grade. So the overall height of the antenna by the FCC is allowed to be 50 feet. So that leaves the antenna height itself as 16 feet 3 inches. Okay. If we switch pages. Sorry. You have this partial west and partial south elevations that are shown here. And you can see the location of the platform. There's the existing platform, and then above that is the antenna itself. The design of the if you want to flip one more page. The design of the antenna is a 4-inch steel pole rising the 16 feet 3 inches off of the platform. It will extend below the platform, through and below the platform for securing purposes, for engineering purposes. And there will be 2 angle struts coming off of the antenna from the midpoint of the antenna down about 4 feet from the base on 2 sides. And they'll secure onto the side of the platform. The color of the antenna we're proposing it to be a very light silver color, almost matching a galvanized color. We believe that on any kind of cloudy day or even overcast day, the antenna will virtually disappear with that light color. It seems to us to be the best color for this antenna. Uh-huh. The radio portion of the antenna is this little 1/2-inch diameter curlicue piece. Mm-hmm. That's really the only functioning piece other than the structure that supports the wire. So there's some structural details attached, and other than that, it's a very basic, very simple assembly.
Yes. All right, so we'll open public comment, and seeing no one, we'll go to questions from the board. Courtney, questions?
Jerry, it looks like there's a repeat of the same layout if you switch to the plan view. Is there already an existing antenna that matches this one in design on the roof?
Sorry.
There's 2 mechanical platforms.
I see.
Okay, so of the 2 mechanical platforms, we're placing the antenna on the second one, the further inboard one.
So the one to the left, or what is that, south, is existing?
Yeah, the platform, all the mechanical equipment on it, that's all existing.
And
that's for existing for both platforms.
Okay. So it actually does extend 20 feet above the elevation of the roof itself, which is noted that's what's noted in the project description.
Yeah, that sounds about accurate.
Yeah.
I mean,
it all kind of depends upon where that edge of roof is. We've measured it to be about 30 feet, I believe.
30 feet?
Well, the edge of the roof, because the platform is above the roof.
Right. Well,
I don't
I'm
have
just
that-
trying
I don't
to
have that specifically in my
discern.
mind, but-
Yeah, I'm just trying to discern what the actual visual portion of it is. I understand that the roof, level changes as you move around the building, and there's potentially a parapet around a portion of the building that obscures it.
No, it's not a parapet, but it is a
The
a
clear
gable
story
end.
windows.
There's a light well up above, or a roof well up on top of this.
Okay.
Look at the
It
roof
just
plan,
it
you can
seems
see.
really tall, but when you look at the visual sims, it doesn't appear to the eye really much at all. So I'm just
Good
trying
comment.
to, yeah,
Can you hold that for your comment period?
sure.
Or still any questions?
Mm-hmm.
Stephanie?
It's not really, sort of a question. But there's nothing on this wall. This sim is showing something behind the wall. Is that correct? There's no equipment that's going to be on that wall.
No equipment.
Okay.
That's just showing where the antenna location would
Okay.
be, so it's not visible from that location.
And the diameter of the antenna, actual?
4 inches.
Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Scott?
One very quick question. It looks like the design of the antenna goes up quite a bit higher than the support needed for the actual working part of the antenna. Am I misunderstanding it?
That's my understanding of how the antenna assembly is from previous reports and previous drawings. I'm not sure if that's exactly how that goes. Maybe one of these two gentlemen can comment on that.
I'm not exactly sure where it needs to be, as far as to have its optimal range, but we do know that the pole itself, or the antenna, cannot go any higher than 50 feet.
No, I just
Structure.
seemed like you could chop off the top part, and the goal is just to support these two little guys.
Right. The likelihood would be that we would use the full height and take it and push this up, maybe to that point.
Why not?
I was probably just trying to quickly represent
Got it. Okay.
what
Thank you.
what I've seen in the past.
Okay, Tip, any questions? Comments? Do you want to start with comments, Tip?
Yes, I'm very familiar with the building. I've been there many times, and the building has a lot of problems, more problems than I want to mention here. And the antenna, the least of my problem, because I don't think you can see from anywhere. With the scale of the building, right in the middle of the building, I'd be surprised to be seeing that from any place. And if you're really looking at it, that means you were not driving. You're looking at things you should be looking at. So I have no problem with the project.
Very good. Scott?
I agree. If I had to pick a spot for an unsightly antenna, I would put it right there. Somewhere in town, that would be the perfect spot.
All right, they should have hired you. Stephanie?
I agree. I don't have a problem with any aspect of the project, and the color is fine.
Courtney?
I agree. No further comments.
So we need a motion, and it is comments only, because this is going to Planning Commission. Tony, do you have something else to add? Did you have something else to add?
Just please, if you could just, this project probably doesn't have major compatibility analysis concerns, but if you could still touch on those criteria in the motion.
Yeah, since Scott just did it, maybe someone else could. The motion would be, indefinite continuance to the consent calendar
The planning
and to Planning Commission. Yep, PC. But it can return to consent calendar for project design and final approval. That the compatibility considerations are really not applicable here because the visual impact of what's being proposed is very, very minor. There's no mass, bulk, and scale issues or adjacent historic resources issues. But it does, so we could say that it complies with all the compatibility requirements. Someone like to make that motion,
I'll
please?
make that motion.
Stephanie?
Second.
Seconded by Courtney. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
That was easy.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you guys for coming.
Do you guys want to keep this or
Come
should I
back and
hold on to
remodel
this?
the building
Should we
next
have-
time to be
Okay, I'm going to take a
better.
picture of it. Do we need to stamp it or anything?
No.
No.
You've got your information.
Thanks for the logo on there.
Definitely has other issues.
A lot of issues.
Well, it looks, our next project, the next item is not up till 4:30, and so it looks like we're going to take another break here.
Maybe we can try to move the last two items up so we don't have to stay, take a break.
Demolish an existing 12,000 square foot commercial building and construct an approximately 55,000 square foot, 45-foot tall hotel on a 38,122 square foot parcel. We've seen this before back in January, and it's comments only because it is going to the Planning Commission. There's it's a three-story. It says three-story here, but we have four. In
Yeah,
some
it's a
areas.
fourth-story element.
Four-story hotel with 115 to 120 rooms. Do we know how many rooms?
It's now at 111 rooms.
111.
We deleted rooms.
And a 90-space subterranean parking lot. 90 spaces.
That's correct.
Okay.
Is this different from West Jam?
Yeah, it has additional exhibits, view simulations, and other exhibits.
Tony, is that okay? This is different than what you looked at.
And I brought a colored set.
It's going to PC. It's going to coastal development. And there's something called a transfer of existing development rights.
Right, which is one of the reasons we're now back, is that issue has been solved. The applicant has acquired the necessary commercial credits to realize the project.
Could you give your names for the record, please?
Okay. There. I'm Jan Hockhauser.
Over there. You press the button. There we go.
All right, good afternoon. I'm Jan Hockhauser with Hockhauser Blatter Architecture and Planning. I'm here with David Black, who represents the landscape architecture side, and Matt Marquis, who represents the applicant and the owner. So I've handed out a variety of exhibits. I've got some smaller ones, HLC-like smaller ones, but
we have
you've got
Jam,
one there.
yeah.
You've got a colored one?
Yep.
Okay.
I don't have one.
I think we're good to go.
Share
So we endeavored to respond in depth to the previous commentary and review.
Which I should have a copy of. Let's see.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do have it.
And if you don't...
Are we going over that item by item, Jan, or?
Yeah, I would think
Okay.
that would be the board would want to see that. So
Sure.
if you think that's a good format,
Okay.
Kirk,
Sure.
we can
Sure.
proceed that way.
So I'll read these one by one, and we can look at what you've done. Number one, in general, the board found the proposed project to be appropriate use of the site. Number two, study separating the combined vehicular and pedestrian entries for a more welcoming pedestrian entry. Or should I read them all?
You want to read them all, and we can...
All right. Number three, return with photograph examples of neighborhood buildings of similar scale and mass to assist in determining the neighborhood compatibility of the project's mass, bulk, and scale. Number four, resolve the unbroken fenestration along the 8 to 10 foot height of the base of the tower element for more openings and other use to offset the castle-like appearance. Number five, study the northeast corner to provide more refinement and architectural interest. Number six, restudy the fourth floor parapet line to be less monotonous and continuous by adding significant breaks and variety in the fourth floor massing. Number seven, provide larger scale elevations. Number eight, study creating a more welcoming Indio Muerto pedestrian experience by adding more landscaping between the building and the sidewalk. Study adding more in-grade planters at the end of Indio Muerto Street. Number nine, study the landscape corridor adjacent to the freeway. Provide photographs of views from the freeway and add a dashed line to the plans showing the freeway height. And study adding trees to mitigate air pollution.
Yes. That was my comment.
All right. So that's it.
Okay, so I'd like to start off. We've responded, fairly in depth to all the commentary, and I would like to start off by saying that the main first comment, I should say, I wouldn't say the main comment. There were some more significant ones, but one comment had to do with the treatment of separating the pedestrian and vehicular entry. And what we've done is create kind of like a dual entry here. We've got a canopy and a definitely scaled pedestrian entry alongside the vehicular porte cochere. So the way this would work is, a lot of the guests arriving would actually pull in and be met by a valet and unload into the lobby that way. But also for visitors, one of the features of this hotel is its proximity to the beach and the ability of visitors to come and go by foot, by bicycle, is serviced by a more pedestrian scaled entry. So we revised that elevation. If you would turn to a you can see it here, and then without the vegetation and foreground screening, you can see it here. It's represented by this tall vertical entry with a canopy. It's also more successfully illustrated over here. We have a view to it that shows the porte cochere and the pedestrian entry alongside. So this canopy would be visible on the sidewalk, and several things were done to address the additional comment about softening the landscape along the building. Instead of placing all the landscaping on the street side, we now adjusted the sidewalk proportions and placed a landscaping corridor along here. And you'll see in additional plans we added a planter wall at the base of the tower, some fenestration through the tower, and I think if you go to the next exhibit, you can see how we responded to berming. And from a landscape perspective, we're really excited about the way these plants would berm up against the tower element, and these openings through to the garage structure and mechanical spaces below. And I just wanted to reiterate to the board that this is not an ideal corner in any way, shape, or form for actual use or access, given its proximity to the ramp and the intersection. But we think with the right plant material and the right berming against the base, that would be a really attractive element there at the corner. So the other thing that was done, and Scott, this would speak to your comment, the loss of rooms was really utilized to kind of articulate and break down the elevation, particularly the south elevation, and create some real articulation and voids in the mass. And what we've done is we've studied this in a 3D fashion as well as with this vegetation. We've added some balcony elements, actually dropped out rooms and made some reductions in the mass on the upper level. But this is far more articulated for its limited length compared to the adjacent hotels in terms of the relationship to the pedestrian and the visual use than what we've got on almost all the adjacent major hotels. So we were thinking about that and thinking that that should address your concerns and comments. The next comment the board made, of course, you asked for larger scale elevations, and in addition to these studies, we provided a full scale colored elevation in the package. The end of Indio Muerto has been modified in a major way. Instead of, originally we had 3 articulated planters. After discussions with the city and the trash that might collect behind them, we kind of went into an overall in the street in a major planter element. That helped not only with the planting availability, but it also helped with drainage and water use issues as well. So one of the things we think the board would be pleased about, and I think what somebody commented on before, it's just a major gentrification along this industrial street right now with the additional plant, underground of utilities, and elimination of all the industrial buildings. Courtney's comments about, I'm going to let David address specifically the species that were folded in to address the mitigating, air quality in terms of using vegetation and landscape for that purpose. But one of the big things I think we really felt it was important to nail, we did two significant studies. One had to do with the view simulations and studying the freeway. So we prepared this exhibit. And this represents, this was a bit of a challenge. It wasn't quite as bad as taping somebody to the side of a car as we drove down the freeway, but we actually had a couple of people in the car and located this carefully and took various shots north and southbound, and then from various points around the project that made sense. And so we've got a pretty thorough study of the impacts. The upper shot is the proposed, the lower one is the existing from each reference point. And we're very careful about marking the height and the virtual, inserting the model at the proper height and location.
Is that something?
Yeah, that's the
other end?
The other end of the project there. Many of these are, I would say this, many of these happen very quickly. So your opportunity to see this is like a blink.
Most of the time the traffic stops.
Depends on what time you go.
Every day.
Yeah, you could get parked right next to it.
Yeah. Well, maybe it's entertaining then. So, yeah, and then this is your northbound shot. That's almost just as you go right by it.
Jen, before you go on, could we look at this site plan that shows where those shots were taken? So,
Northwest.
oh, so this,
It's almost right beside it.
huh, it looks further away.
It does look further away. It looks.
Yeah, there's quite a bit of
miles away.
distance
You're using a
involved.
wide angle.
Yeah,
Okay. So can we go back to that sheet then that shows that number 2? Yeah.
number 2. You can see where you are on the rampway because you're actually starting to exit as you approach in number 2 here.
It would seem to me that the impact would be greater, if you were right here, which another 50 feet down the road. But
It's kind of like at that point, if you're using the straight ahead kind of orientation.
it'd be hard to get a photograph there unless you walked up on the freeway.
Right.
Yeah,
Rush hour.
I think one of the site benefits from pretty good buffering in terms of its setbacks, like on this side especially.
Mm-hmm.
But even here, it's not right up against the freeway. It's off the other side of the ramp. So, depending on where you go, you could do a real time. If you stop on the freeway, yes, you get a better shot of it. Mm-hmm. But also there are plantings that are coming into play on this side. I think you'd want to stop in a southbound to really get a view of it because your northbound is pretty well screened from a passenger perspective.
And of course, if you went down the off-ramp, right in here, that's going to be a much bigger impact than that. So in your elevations also show the height of the freeway, I noticed?
Yes, you asked for that, and that's something that we added to the drawings, and I can get to that.
Okay.
But, each of these represents those locations.
Mm-hmm.
And, the other thing in deference to some of the previous board commentary was some work on this elevation. Scott, you had indicated, even though I felt like the array of palms would be a nice place, shadows against the massing, based on your comment, we went to the trouble of adding some grills and screens and more breakups, actually reduced the unit, added a balcony element, so it's much more articulated and refined than it was. But I still believe that with the right vegetation that'll be an interesting play because we've got an ample buffer there of a landscaping space. And then from the point south, again, this is where it really benefits from the separations and buffering. But you can see the impact of the structure. And the breakup of the mass, the articulations kind of like, I think, help integrate it into the surroundings. The context is fairly cacophonous in terms of style and all kinds of forms and architectural styles. But speaking to that, it's kind of like we definitely want this to hearken to the vocabulary of Santa Barbara, but not be so fixed in literal traditions and have a little bit more freedoms. But we definitely use the elements that we've got a resource board to share with the board of parts and pieces that are really indicative of the community.
Okay.
And then you've got as you go right by the site, looking east, kind of at the prow of the ship.
Are these existing palms?
Those are the existing palms there, yes.
And they'll remain?
Yes.
Oh, they are. Okay.
Okay.
And then the ball field from south, major public spaces looking back. And this is from North Milpas looking, as you approach the site. Kind of habit territory in terms of location.
Okay.
And this is at the end of the Red Line property as you leave that parking lot. So, the other exhibit I think we should touch on that's related to this is the one that has to do with context and size, bulk, scale compatibility. And I believe we've got this exhibit. This indicates kind of like, analysis of, the neighborhood and surrounding coastal zone properties and, relative mass. I think the thing that I'm excited about is the amount of usable terrace space, courtyard space that this project offers in terms of turning an industrial asphalt surface into usable human surfaces. But you get an idea of this is the fourth story mass, and the third story, and then the lower inner courtyard there. But these are all projects that have.
Are these fourth story? Is the color representative of the fourth story?
No, the color is representative just mass. Most everything in color is 3 stories, and then just relative mass of development, intensity of development. Like this project relative to these adjacent residential, Red Line, this industrial building.
This comes in the category of questions, but I think it's something that you commented on last time and the board commented on last time, and you just mentioned that in relation to other hotels in the area that the height was comparable or the massing was comparable. Do you have something that illustrates that or shows that?
Yes. So in terms of mass and volume and perception, definitely. So we collected an array of photographs, and certainly like perhaps the most outstanding one is the public's experience walking at all places right against and away from the Red Line, the sheer scale and mass of it. It's a huge volume of development. Ours is much more, a lot smaller than that.
But these are, I thought you were talking about height and articulation, but this is third story maximum, right?
Right, but what my point, Kirk, is that your experience of that third story is much more severe from the user's perspective. It's much more sheer, it's a lot longer, and you get a lot closer to it than you get to this project.
Okay. Are there any 4 stories nearby?
There are elements of this project, the Red Line, that go up to like 4 stories in height. There are elements of this project that go up to 4 stories in height. Whether there's any specific use areas like 4-story elements, I don't know. There are other areas. I just use this relative neighborhood to say that's our study focus.
Okay.
And the Santa Barbara Inn is 2-story, right?
That's 3 stories.
3 story.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you have more you want to show us, or?
Yeah, I mean, we've got more exhibits, and I could show.
Okay.
Get into those.
All right.
So this is your kind of Google Earth site plan where the development is inserted into the surroundings. And you can see the 4th story element kind of backed up into here. and it terraces down to the focus of the tower element. Because of the time of day that we're proposing this project, it has to incorporate a lot of green standards, site improvements, stormwater drainage, as much energy features as we can. But again, we remind the board of the usability functions that are available with the project, this courtyard terrace, this upper terrace here. The percentages of actual usable surface are significant, and that's something that, is part of the policy guidelines.
Okay.
For review. There's your parking plan. This is all valet parking. This shows the improvements to the intersection. This kind of works its way into consistency with what's happening up and down Milpa Street. Crosswalks, improvements to the intersection. There's a city program to extend the sidewalks on the east side of Milpa Street, which we're folding into. These are just, I can get back to these if the board has questions.
This is open to the ground level?
This is 1 story above ground level.
Okay.
From the portico share, you could come up to it.
Okay.
And the main arrival lobby is on the 2nd floor. So because of if I might add, because of the elevated freeway and the harshness of this first story, it's ideal to park on that level and then start the project kind of on the podium above that.
Mm-hmm.
That has several positive benefits. It's certainly a lead standard to do that and get the parking under the structure and not out on the site. That's a goal, of a lot of different policy directions, but it works very well here. And, it kind of separates the project. The orientation this way, of course, relies on the technology of acoustic windows and ventilation systems, but the views across that way are very good. By enveloping, like this, we kind of turn our back to those negative impacts of noise and freeway traffic and kind of create this inner sanctum. And as you go up, you have this upper terrace space here, which is further removed from the freeway. Height terraces down, and it's got great vantage points, which I illustrated briefly in these views, because you have both the arrival sketch and you've got the elevated terrace sketch, that would have views out onto the ocean.
Okay.
And then there's your roof plan. It's just kind of a repeat.
Was that the 4th floor plan we just looked at, this sheet?
This sheet, yeah, that's your fourth
floor. Yeah.
4th floor.
Okay, thanks.
And then this is the elevation, south elevation. It shows the play of the project.
So these are parapets?
Yeah, those
above the
are
4th
parapets to screen mechanicals.
Okay.
And
all right.
And different materials, a lot of use of tile work, water jet metal railing systems. And I have, you can see a little bit of that detail in some of the further drawings, but we're excited about the vocabulary. If the board is interested, we've got a lot of great resource material to show the application of those materials throughout Santa Barbara and downtown.
Are these awnings or?
Awnings.
Okay. And do you have kind of a typical what you're looking at?
Yeah, I've got a blow-up detail, Kirk, of that over here.
Just to try and really understand the character of what you're aiming for.
Now, I'm too far into this set. There's a color. We come back this way.
Maybe we can come back to it. We have some public comments, and we'll go, and then when we get into questions from the board, we can look at that.
Sure.
So is there anything else you want to present? Landscape. Let's look at that. So this plan has a lot of the same elements that I presented the last time we were here. Just for orientation, here's the off-ramp, and then into Muerto here. One sort of change is before we had some, large planters, self-contained planters down at the end, but we've actually shifted around and created an in-ground planter at the base of this, tall Caltrans wall. I think the major comment that we had from Courtney the last time was integrating some CO2 or pollution absorbing plants. I actually had, after some effort, found a list of plants, or trees rather, and the one I ended up selecting because I'm somewhat familiar with it, it's a street tree over on the west side where I live, and it's the Liriodendron, the tulip tree, and it's sort of an all-around pollution absorber, as it turns out. I wouldn't have done that otherwise, but so we're showing that here. There are three, and then the other major elements, just as an overview. We've got this two major massings of existing eucalyptus that will be preserved here and here. And the other major elements are, I sort of always imagined that the structure would sort of grow out of a sort of a grove of Washingtonia robustas, because I thought the scale of it would be good. And as you came down the freeway or looked at it from the beach side, you'd see this big grove of palm trees and, the hotel structure coming out of it. And so that's always been the intent from the beginning. And then at the end of the building here, as it faces the freeway, I'm showing erythrina, which is sort of a large flowering. I always have this image because it is a hotel, and this area is, can probably use some color. I tried to think of all the ways that we could use plant material with color. The erythrina in bloom is provide a really bright spot here. On the ground plane, I'm sort of seeing a lot of ground cover type bougainvilleas, some climbing bougainvilleas, foliage like phormiums and stuff, obviously all of a low water palette, and then a lot of succulents, blue agaves and different aloes and agave americanas and that sort of thing. And then this along here was the Metrosideros, which is a good seaside flowering tree that we've used many times, and then up in the upper podium area, I'm seeing the opportunity to use a lot of succulents, succulent garden up here with lots of color and low water palette, and that same Washingtonia grove just kind of wraps all the way around to the tower in here. We're going to have to be very selective about their final locations because of we don't want to be blocking views and what have you. But this is sort of the concept as we've developed it. Okay, great, thank you. So we're going to open up public comment. We have two requests to speak, and if anyone else would like to speak, there's pink slips over on the side of the room to fill out. The first person is Casey Graves. Absolutely. Oh, yeah, of course. Please come forward, Casey.
Have a seat right here.
This is your very own microphone there.
Testing.
Works. Great.
I live and work in Santa Barbara, and I think that this project would be a fantastic addition to the city and to Milpas. I know I have a lot of family that I'd prefer to put up at this hotel rather than my own house, so I fully endorse this project.
Okay. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks for your comment. And Allie Hudgens.
Hello.
Hello.
My name is Allie, and I'm a resident of the area, and I frequent that area often, and I would love to see this project built. I think the landscape will help spruce up that area and bring more visitors.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for your comment. Okay, let's close public comment and go to questions from the board. Courtney, you have any questions?
Yeah.
Jan, I was taking a closer look at your elevations, and I had a question about, I think it's the north elevation. Oh, I lost it.
The colored one in there somewhere?
It should be in there.
It's 11.2. You're looking at it there. Isn't that it?
Yeah, but I got a colored one in there.
Upside down.
I knew I should have stapled it. So like, those are the Sims. I'm going to put those on the floor behind.
More Sims. There's some. There's an elevation. There's an elevation.
I think it's coming up. Here we go. North. Now, did you mean, okay, the entry elevation?
The north elevation. I don't, yeah.
Here we go.
There we go. Yeah, you've got a couple of sheets in the set I'm looking at, but if we could look at this area without the trees, actually Scott's got it here.
Yeah. Okay.
You can see with the trees, it looks quite nice, but the heights of these palms are actually, this is well above the height of the building, so something in the range of 45 feet. So it's going to be some time before those palms get that tall, and I'm looking at this corner. I understand there's a lot of stepping back in that elevation, but there's no fenestration, and this is the view actually as you exit off the freeway. So could you
yeah, I think it's important.
That?
I understand your comment, and I want you to look at the elevation to the east, because you're kind of seeing this side. You need to see that side at the same time.
I've looked at them both, but I'm just wondering, why is this so blank?
Well, it's just that view that if you look at the east, we've added some grill fenestration.
Can we find that?
Yeah. Yeah.
One quick question: is this a printing error, or does that represent the freeway?
That represents the freeway.
Okay.
Yeah, the board had asked me to put on the drawings. In fact, this shadow line here, while it's not a line, that's the height of the freeway at that corner.
Okay.
So it's about 16 feet above grade. That elevation, here we go. So, what we've done on this side, Courtney, has added this grillwork fenestration, these windows, this balcony element here, and these carve-outs, those recess deeply into that balcony. So on that side, it doesn't have as much fenestration. It's more.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still seeing. I don't know.
Yeah, and your freeway wall is here's your freeway wall like that.
Sure.
So that's
And this extra height here is functioning.
That's the elevator tower, stair tower.
David, on your landscape plan, what size do you think those palms will be? What are you thinking for those?
Well, I'm going to guess probably 18 to 20 foot trunk height to begin with.
Great. Okay. And I just had a question about the roof terrace also. It's quite large. Mm-hmm. And I'm just curious to know, what's the thinking there in terms of how it'll be used?
Well, I can tell you some of the features that we've talked about. We plan to have what's called a spool, which is kind of a smaller swimming pool for guests.
Okay.
And you'll have a surrounding area and a protected area around that.
Mm-hmm.
We have the gazebo element at the top of the tower, which would be like a seating surround with a fire pit, potentially. And then we have kind of some sedum roof planters. There's that raised skylight to the lobby below, which could be like a bar area. That canopy in light color opposite that skylight is kind of like the outdoor bar area.
Mm.
So there's quite a few activities that occur on the roof, and we think it's fairly broken up.
Okay, thank you.
Stephanie, questions?
Along the landscaping line of questioning, is there any landscaping on that roof deck that's going to protrude above the roof line or parapet lines?
I would say not,
Yeah, I would
Stephanie.
say not,
It's
too.
sedum-based because of the structural issues involved. It has to be like a low-level sedum-based roofing. So your plant material is going to be 16, 18 inches. It won't.
Okay.
It will not exceed your parapet heights on the roof terrace.
Okay.
Yeah, we don't want to mess up our views anyway up there.
So it's more of a green roof than
Yeah, green roof
planter?
element.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Okay. And then along that end of Indio Muerto Street, where the big tall wall, it's not represented here. Is it that big, huge wall?
Yes.
It's not represented.
Well,
in this
it
drawing.
actually, at the angle of the site, it actually would be coming across like this. So, you know, if you're driving down Indio Muerto, that wall
And
would
it's
be,
like about 12 feet
it's 16 feet at its highest point. From grade here.
From grade.
Yeah.
And does the landscaping slope up to it at all? Or
That wasn't the intention. You
It
know, it was
just
just to
hits
use that space.
straight at the bottom.
Right. Use that space in there between the base of the building and the wall to make it lush and use that for a screening opportunity.
Could we go to the landscaping?
Landscape plan?
Yeah, plan.
We are awash.
Is it down there?
A little bit here.
My question is kind of like, if this is that wall, and this is getting kind of close, but if this wall could be retaining, then this could slope up, and kind of, you would get a little more height from the plants that are planted here to mitigate that height of that perceived corner here.
I brought a photograph of that tree that we're proposing down there, just in case you're interested.
So all of this planting is at the same grade as the
Well,
parking garage, essentially.
Very close to that, yes.
Okay. But it could, in fact, be 8 feet higher or
Right.
something like that.
Some of these plantings, the ones that exist, are significantly taller. They're like 50, 60 feet plus in the air. But, you know, I would think that rather than build a retaining structure, and, you know, you're talking maybe 5, 6 feet of additional height, I would think we could, you know, look at putting in species that really do what the board intends it to do in terms of box size and getting the screening effects of that.
Okay. Could you speak to, let's see, Sullivan, explain a little bit more about what these elements are and what they. I thought there were some close-up shots of that somewhere.
Well, you've got
the
it.
steel?
You've got it
It's like that.
in like a view here.
Okay. What is all that?
These are this is a balcony space, balcony space, and you know we actually took the unit out of there and created this void to kind of relieve and articulate the shadowing and massing on that elevation. And so we've used that. That was a change from the commentary, some refinements that address Scott's concern, because before there was much more of this repetition along that elevation. So we implemented those elements to kind of create a variety of form and introduce some shadowing.
And so how does that work? Is it hanging off of the...
Well, it's cantilever. The balconies cantilever off the floor. So that's a screen wall.
And how far out does that protrude from this wall?
It's as flush as this wall. This wall is like 8 feet back. So
that comes out 8 feet? Cantilever's out 8 feet?
8 feet, yeah. You can see this on the plan views. If we go to the floor plans, this is reflected on the floor plans. Then as you drive by on the rampway, this is the screening, you know, the water jet screens to the garage element, and that becomes this first floor guardrail. And then,
is that flush with this wall?
No, it's recessed back.
Noticing a kind of this kind of theme of this squares, 4 squares around the building. Is that relating to? Is that some
tiles or whatever?
Are they?
Well, those are actually openings, Kirk, through the tower base. And I think what you were asking about, Stephanie, back on this elevation here is, again, you're seeing those 4 squares as the 4 balcony openings there as well, but just at a different scale. Here they're just small little fenestrations into the base of the tower
So
element.
this
Here-
is another floating balcony
Yeah, this
thing
is
that pokes
floating.
out 8 feet away
Well, no,
from the...
this one just happens to float out like 3 or 4 feet, again, to relieve the plane of the building.
Okay. And this treatment up on the parapet, is that more of that steel grating?
Well, it's
Or that
it's
steel-
actually in plaster in this case. It mimics the grading, but it perforates the parapet wall to create interest in detail. It's quite traditional. You see that in a lot of buildings and parapets, whether it's done in brickwork, some kind of grill work. Often you'd see it done in balustrades, like in Baroque balustrades. But in this case, we thought tying it in with our pattern would be, really consistent with the architecture.
So in this elevation, is this representing the awning? Or is that, what is that?
in this elevation, the north elevation, that's just kind of like a recessed header, which will be done decorative color. You kind of see decorative headers like on Jeff Shelton's new building. He did the blue and white keyboard. It would be something along those lines.
And I noticed on one of your other drawings, there were some horizontal lines going through here, but I don't
Yeah,
see
that's
them
the
on
detail.
here.
That's in the
Are there?
detail.
Yeah,
there.
this.
And that's just
What
to
is that
articulate
stepped
just
in some way?
It's just scoring the plaster work to kind of make a abstract reference to the
So it would be a
stone
reglet?
rustification of a base like that. Yeah, it would be like a reglet in the plaster. This wall, the actual planter wall that we've added to soften that and provide the plant material, that would actually be done in real stone.
Okay. I think that's it for my questions.
Okay. Just to tag onto that on this page, this is a battered wall.
Mhm.
Are there any other? This looks like it's slightly battered too. Is that?
No, just
It's
the
the
rounded
tower?
tower element has the batter to it.
Okay, everything else is straight up and down?
Straight up and down, yeah.
It definitely looks like a batter.
It batters on
seeing
this
things.
side,
Yeah.
Kirk, where it comes back around.
Mhm.
But this is kind of recessed back.
Right.
And then you can see, the scribe to the battering, and then this wall plane. And of course, here's your perforated screen overlapping the wall and then opening below into the garage structure.
Okay, and this paint line is also going to be a bump in the plaster, not just a paint line?
Just a fine bump, inch and a
Okay.
half bump in the plaster.
Okay. All right, go ahead, Scott.
Can we look at the landscape plan for 1 sec?
There we go.
Oh, here we go.
We got it.
So this gigantic grove, the eucalyptus, I noticed it's projecting over the top of the building. You can construct this building without disturbing those trees and they'll live through the ordeal?
Well, that'd be your intent, certainly.
How likely is it
That they survive.
to occur?
I'm sure we're going to have to get an arborist out there.
The trunks are probably really close
Yeah,
to the
well,
foundation.
they're actually carefully surveyed right here
Okay.
off the building. And there would be pruning and, careful.
Okay.
We certainly would want to take advantage of them. They're a nice feature, and to be able to see through them from the terrace would be a real plus.
Okay. Maybe Courtney can enlighten us if she thinks.
Yeah, I actually forgot to ask about that. I had the same question because it looks like there's just one in particular that's the closest to the building, and it appears to be about 10 feet from the building. So you're definitely going to have to cut some big roots for that guy.
Right.
And I also wondered what the species was. Do you happen to know? Which type of eucalyptus?
It's not globulus. It's not. I'll find out. I've forgotten now.
Is it Citriodora?
No, definitely not that.
So I'll leave the rest for comments. Thanks.
Did you have a question?
Yeah, a
Sorry.
couple more questions. Can you describe the parapet detail? It looks like it's got a little step back, and then is it a metal cap, or?
No, it's all plaster, Scott.
Yeah, up through
so
here?
it steps back, and then it
Okay.
steps back again at the top.
Okay, got it. And then the windows for the project, have you guys thought about materials or
Well,
details?
We're not at that level of detail. We certainly want a quality look. We chatted about a dark bronze anodized or dark black as a window color.
Okay. And then how much space is there between this kind of pop-out And this popped out the 8 feet like the other one?
No, this one's less.
Okay.
This one's less. That other side reveal goes much deeper. This is kind of like a 3 foot pop out.
Okay.
To provide that shadow.
And these, what are those recesses?
Let's look at the plan. I think that'll help. So on the second floor plan, you can see the extent of that pop out as opposed to this one. On this one, that pop out is actually out over here.
Got it.
So as I told Stephanie, it flushes out with the wall, and the balcony above comes like this.
Wow.
Okay. And these are the other recesses. Those are like 3 feet.
Yeah, like 30 inches, Kirk.
Okay.
Is it just not shown on here?
No, it's on the floor above. Okay. That's why it's not shown on this floor.
Oh, I see.
That was it for my question. Thank you.
Okay, Tip, you're on.
Yeah, I want to ask you some questions about the functionality of the hotel. It seems to me like you mentioned that because this is such a great location, you try to promote the beach access to the hotel. So the question number one had to do with the beautiful round rooms in the corner. And it seemed to me that pretty much a major focal point by design and by location. And it seemed to me like there will be 2 suites or rooms.
That's right.
And I'm trying to ask you about that because it seemed to be like it's a very visible corner. Would it be a good use for a suite, or would it be better used for a public function? Instead of putting the dining, the breakfast way in the back towards the freeway? That's one question. The second question I have for you is about the rooftop. It seemed like it would be a beautiful rooftop and hopefully be used. And I look at and I find that there's only one way to get up, which is the elevator, one elevator from the lobby, which elevator serving the 3, 4 floors, and you have a staircase away in the back, in the corner. So I just wonder about the traffic flow, functionality of that rooftop.
You want me to answer that?
Please.
So we debated that, and management has debated the idea of 2 elevators or 1 elevator, and I could let them speak to it. But I think they felt, given that the rooftop terraces will be for the guests of this hotel, staff asked us in the application, is this an open public venue for major events? And we said no, it would have to be for visitors of the hotel. And then after consideration, they said at this juncture, let's go forward with the 1 elevator for guests. We have a separate elevator for service in the back.
I think the same comment with the function of the round areas that seem to be, but that I think you can study that. But I guess my last question had to do with the fact that it seemed to be a very nice design, but it's definitely a major hotel in that corner. And I know that when Montecito approved the Miramar Hotel, which was 2 stories, and they had to put up story poles because of the height, which I believe was 30 feet max. So has the board considered story poles?
I don't think it's been in our comments yet, but we can ask for it.
I'm just wondering because it's such a major corner, and then the city had the issue with all the mobile homes across the street, and I think without seeing it, we really can't truly see how the massing would work from that corner. And as I understand, as we mentioned, we like the freeway to flow, but it's never flow anymore. It stops every day.
Right.
And it's a different kind of thing that we need to look at every day, and I think that might be helpful.
Okay, so that's a comment, and it's a good comment.
I think that's for my questions.
Okay. Do you want to roll those into comments, or do you have any?
Yeah, maybe we can roll to comments. Yeah, I think it's a from the first look at the small scale drawings, I think it's a beautiful project. I just have a couple comments. Number one had to do with the round element at the corner. I think that it should be probably, I think the design is fine, but I think the cupola might be a little too heavy. How much of the roof and how much of the columns? I think the column a little short for the roof. And I think that the function of that cupola, that round element, probably can be a little more prominent in terms of interior usage instead of hotel rooms. And same as find a way, try to promote beach access, because right now the only way you can go to the beach is go all the way to the parking garage and go into the hotel and go up. And depending on how you treat the garage, but that's going to be a dark hole. And that's the second comment. The third comment is it seems like you have some beautiful interior courtyard, one on the main level and one on top of the roof. And I think the special consideration and care should be you should address how the landscaping, so it doesn't look like a big paved areas. Mm-hmm. You are bringing landscaping into the courtyard, which I think is beautiful. And right now, I think that is lacking the degree of specialness for both two areas. And then the last thing is my comment about story poles. I think that we need to see something in the corner. I'm not too concerned about the corner facing Milpas. I'm more concerned about the corners facing the freeway. And I think that at least that should be staked so the public can see it and so the board can make some decision.
Okay. Thanks, Chip. Scott, do you have comments?
Yeah, I think I agree with Chip's comment about at least the proportions of the dome.
Which is what? Can you...
That the ratio of the column height to the height of the dome was not quite optimized yet. I think higher columns...
One deceiving thing is the columns don't sit on top of the parapet wall. So from the terrace, the columns tip are behind this parapet wall, so they're actually like an 8-foot column. So the roof terrace perception is quite different.
Yeah, but visually from the public,
right?
That's what you will see.
Mm-hmm. And then generally, I think the changes made by the applicant are for the better. I like the fact that there's more variety in the roof eave line or roof line. That's a very, very positive step. I'm happy to see that happen. And there seems to be a lot more variety in the elevations. My only comment is that some of the variety, particularly on this north elevation, it's very well broken down, but at the expense of kind of overall cohesion. It feels as if there's perhaps too many parts, and if there were maybe even some joining together of these, the building might tie together as a whole better. And these pop-outs, I think, are very interesting. They feel a little at odds stylistically with the rest of the building. And speaking to style, this elevation, I think, is greatly improved by this pedestrian entry. I think you really listened to the board, and I think that is a nice improvement. Stylistically, there's some funny things happening here. This feels very traditional Santa Barbara, and this feels more modern and streamlined. Mm-hmm. And I think throughout the building, there's that tension between stylistically Santa Barbara and something more modern. And it feels like the project as a whole isn't resolved in that regard yet. My preference, I think, would be just, since the majority of the buildings and other hotels are more stylistically Santa Barbara, that would be my direction, but I think it needs to go one way or the other. Either it's more modern and heads that direction, or it leans more stylistically kind of Santa Barbara. So I see that as a general comment on the whole. What else did I have here? I think I agree with the story poles. I think we need to see just how big it is from the freeway, and then we can all get a general sense of it. On the whole, the improvements are very good. I just think, it's almost like a railway car. There's too many pieces, and it's not joined together enough as one cohesive project on this elevation. Let's look at the other elevation really quick. Do we have it?
For the south elevation, I was trying to find it.
Yeah.
I think you want to go the other way, Scott.
It's buried under there somewhere. Maybe we need to flip through these after.
Well, that's for the black and white versions.
Okay.
That should be. back in here. You're going to save that one.
South elevation under here.
Roof and staple would have been a great idea.
All right, sans color.
Okay. The only concern I have about some of these elevations is that from the sides, you get a sense of just the kind of boxiness and the kind of stripped down nature of these. And I think some of that articulation needs to turn the corner in some of these areas where you're really exposing the edge. Oh, fantastic. And I wonder if just a change in paint line and a few punched openings with some very nice rails is enough to really carry the day with this. And maybe, there's a change in plane here, right?
Yeah, oh yeah, most definitely.
And maybe it needs to be more significant. I think perhaps a little more detail and articulation would help out that elevation quite a bit.
It's fairly easy to kind of articulate and dress up those recesses when they're deep.
Mm-hmm.
I think when they're rather shallow, I don't think there's any point to it.
No, I agree with you there, yeah. And then perhaps some variety in the parapet details might enhance the building. I think they're nice, but it's kind of, there's a lot of repetition in the parapet details. And maybe emphasizing these punched openings is not the best way to go. Maybe there's more detail that's linear in nature.
You know, the only comment back quickly is that when you talk about the other side, those are the kinds of things that give it more of its thread that stitches it together.
I see what you're saying. But maybe if there were less staccato and more along the length of the parapet, that might add some different nuance. But on the whole, I think the changes that you made were very positive, and I'm happy with what you guys have done so far.
Thank you.
Scott, quick question, because we've heard it twice now. The story poles, we have existing businesses and buildings on site there. How do we do that?
We maybe talk about it later. Typically, it's not something we try and engage with and discuss about. It becomes your issue of how to go about it in the best way without disturbing activity that's going on there now. But was that all your comments?
All my comments.
Stephanie?
Mostly, I think it's definitely an improvement to what we've seen. I agree with Scott's comment about the dichotomy of the modern versus the traditional detailing on it. Some of that, especially, is reflected in these modern, deep cantilevered elements. I think they're more successful when when everything doesn't flush out at the same, and it maybe sits back a little more. I want to go to the north elevation. This. I think a little more study with regard to some of these openings. I think there was an opening somewhere else along here. I saw it on one of the other elevations. There was a double door feature, and this is just kind of very plain. And I think some attention needs to be paid to what these openings, how they're functioning, what their function is, and can they be articulated better in some way? Are they supposed to just go away and not be there? But maybe these quieter elevations need a little more attention. And the rear function kind of back of house corner it's very contentious and has been, because that's the main view you see from the freeway, is still very important. I mean, this is kind of the gateway view, a public view. And, like we've said previously at previous meetings, that's going to be very, very visible. And Unfortunately, it's the back. It's where your back of the house functions are, and it's usually a quieter part of the building. But here, it's in the most public view, and so I just think a lot more attention needs to be paid to what that's going to look like. And it's really broken up in random ways that don't seem to make much sense architecturally when you look at the building. And so I just think it needs a lot more attention, as much as you've paid to the rest of the building.
Yeah. Stephanie, one thing I would like to say is that, and I think the board in general, and you would agree with this, is that good architecture isn't necessarily always fenestrated and detailed. They could be simple forms, and I think if the landscaping is successful, not to say that the architecture won't stand by itself, but it doesn't necessarily, in my view, and I would hope to get some...
John, I'm sorry to interrupt.
Okay.
We're not through with comments
Sure.
yet. Can we get through our comments?
Sure.
Courtney.
I just had a couple here. I would like to see an arborist report and a tree protection plan the next time you come back so that we can see what these eucalyptus are in terms of species and size and potential intrusion on the roots, et cetera. And also if there's any other existing trees on the site. I'm not sure. I was trying to get a look at the aerial and it's difficult. So if you could come back with that. I think the landscape plan looks great. Palette's very nice, and I look forward to more detail on that in terms of how you're working with the stormwater management items also. Regarding the rooftop and the second floor terrace design, I agree with Tip's comments, and I think that was very well said in terms of how those areas are designed. And I know this is concept level, so it's pretty rough, but I would like to see a lot more attention paid to those spaces because they are quite large and very important to the use of the hotel. So look forward to seeing that. And what else? I like the treatment at the end of Indio Muerto. I think that'll be nice. And also appreciate the buttressed planter on the corner. And might have had something else with that. Nope, I guess that's it.
Okay.
Looks great.
Thank you. Tony, just some clarification. When this goes to the Planning Commission, they could potentially also ask for story poles, right?
Right.
And they commonly do, in fact.
Right.
So I'm just wondering if we were, how we could avoid them doubling up on a requirement, a very expensive requirement like that. What would be your recommendation?
We can ask the planning commissioners to take a look at the story poles when they're up for the purpose of the ABR viewing. Mm-hmm. And of course, we also ask the applicant to document story poles with photographs. Anyway.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Yeah, in my discussions with staff, it's my understanding that we will put the stories up once and ask the planning commissioners to look at it. That is a requirement of the DART application.
Okay. I don't really have differing comments than those that have already been made, but I'll just, stylistically, I think there is still some work to be done to make the building coherent as a whole. And that, what I see are, nice, it's all nice design work, and there's a lot of creativity that's gone into it, but it does seem to me to be kind of a mixture of Spanish, more modern contemporary interpretation of what might be, local Spanish vernacular, and I don't know, it's sort of Egyptian, I guess I would say, with the way the railings and ironwork is articulated.
Moroccan.
Deco.
Or Moroccan, we can call it Moroccan. Or Deco, yeah. But anyway, there's a mixture there that I think still needs to be refined, and it's very specifically has to do with detailing, and I know you're not there yet. We're still working on massing and broad brush strokes. So I'm not going to get into it, but I think that is a concern that all of us have. So Looks like we're ready for a motion. Let me just do one other thing. So on our previous comments, we made a comment that I heard again this time, and that was study the northeast corner to provide more refinement and architectural interest. How many board members feel that the northeast corner, as it's currently designed, is acceptable? We have one.
I'm on the fence.
Chair, I think that maybe we should, my recommendation is to look at the story poles so that we can see better what we can see from the freeway before we make more comments on that corner.
Okay. And then the other comment that I'm not sure was addressed was, maybe it was, yeah, I think it was, actually, the pedestrian experience on Indio Muerto. I think you did come back with photographs, obviously, of neighboring buildings of similar scale and mass, but I think, one thing that it did make clear was that there aren't any 4-story buildings of this mass in the neighborhood. So it is, in that sense, exceeding what would typically be considered the neighborhood scale. But there's mitigating factors, as you pointed out. It's next to the freeway. It's got these buffering zones around it. So it may turn out that it's okay, but I think, as others have mentioned, that story poles are probably in order. Do you want to make a motion?
Sure.
If you're ready?
Take a stab at it.
All right.
Before you do, am I allowed to have a minute?
Sure. Half a minute.
Go for it.
Well, just a couple of things. I think as we know Santa Barbara together and we look around, there's a great variety of architecture taking place now. If you speak to Jeff Shelton, who's fairly prolific, he's doing some pretty wild things in a vernacular that's best described as Gaudi, with popping out tile forms. I photographed them. I don't need to bring them out. The idea of perforated screens, I've gone around Santa Barbara and elsewhere and provided a huge portfolio of reference material that this is a prolific device used in Moroccan and Spanish architecture.
Let me jump in. I don't think anyone has any problem with any one element as an element. I think it's the combination of the disparity of the type of elements. Like, this is very traditional. This is extremely modern. Mm-hmm. In the same project, practically shaking hands. That's the part that feels a little at odds to me.
I think everyone liked the wrought iron. Or
yeah.
whatever.
Where I was going, not to be argumentative, but just to point out and give Stephanie some comfort. Like, we're looking forward to showing you the detail of some of these elements that you were asking for, and how they get folded in. So a little more detail, bracketing.
One thing, I'm taking exception to some other board members. I feel that the more I look at this building, the more it feels like something I've seen in Morocco. I think that's really unique and interesting. I don't think it had to be Spanish with the deep-set windows that look like everything else. And so, I mean, it's, at least my opinion, I think that the building goes in the right direction. Just needs some refinement, make it really unique. I think uniqueness is the key to here. I don't want you to copy this and copy that, and suddenly you have a mismatch of different elements. So, at least my opinion, I think you go in the right direction.
Okay.
Okay. There's various opinions on the board.
Always?
Yeah. Okay. I think everyone in general, just general comments, likes the direction the project is going, feels that the applicant has done a good job whittling away at the massing on the upper level to provide enough articulation to make the mass, bulk, and scale more acceptable as a project. So very positive measure by the applicant there. A few comments to hopefully improve the building. One was look at the general architectural style of the building and potentially come up with something more cohesive, less of a gap between the modern elements and the traditional elements. There was a comment about the parapets and study the detailing and design of the parapets. I don't know if others agreed with me, but
looking for more variety.
More variety, yeah.
I think that's to me, that's valid.
Okay. Study or get an arborist report on the eucalyptus trees or the eucalyptus grove to ensure that it's viable during the construction of the building. In general, the landscape plan received very positive comments. I think the landscape plan is looking very good. Is this the northwest corner?
East.
Northeast?
It's hard to say.
Hard to
It's
say.
kind of like north. It is like the northwest. North. It's really the north corner.
Okay, study the north corner of the building in terms of mass bulk scale and articulation. Many of the board members had special concern about that elevation, considering its proximity to the freeway views. I don't know how others feel about this. I felt that maybe conjoining some of these elements might have a positive effect on the building. If I'm the only one, then we won't put that into the minutes. Perhaps I'm the only one. Then
You might be.
You might be the only
Okay, then we'll strike that. There was a comment about the tower element and the proportions of the columns. I understand that they're 8 feet on the inside, but
So maybe we'll reveal them.
maybe you reveal them.
Got it.
There was some concern about the very large cantilevered balcony element. I'm not sure if there was.
There was a suggestion about the one that comes right out to the surface,
Not
having it be
pushing
not
it,
flush.
Right. Breaking it off plane, person has comment.
And I think in general, the board reacted favorably to the water jet cut railings and the interesting designs. The board likes the new pedestrian entry adjacent to the vehicle entry. In terms of other comments, I think I covered it. Did I miss anything?
The roof terrace and second level terrace design,
Oh, in terms of circulation?
in terms
More
of
detailed
just design,
Okay.
detailing.
Provide more information on the uses and design of the second and third floor terrace.
And I'd like to add the comment about the interior function of the round element. And
It's not really affecting the architecture.
right.
It's not really
But
affecting
it
the
might be affecting how the exterior is treated. It does changes. And also the beach access. I'm not sure that you mentioned that how the pedestrian beach access from the beach to the hotel could be a little more visible.
It's essentially through that door, right?
Yeah.
But it's almost like the garage.
There's no real interface on the other side. And, and there is no elevation here. You actually just come around here and then it's somewhere on here.
walk all the way around. You can't
all
walk
the way around
through.
across.
Don't you
Like,
just go through the
freeway
lobby?
exit? These are highly desirable suites for us. We have them in our Jamaica Bay product, and they're absolutely loved by the guests. So.
Pay for them.
Is it okay if we make that a recommendation? One board member recommended.
I know you said the favorable suites.
Yeah.
So let's say it's all glass, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of glass.
So let's say if some guests check in, turn all the lights on, so you'll see everything.
Well, usually we have some screening behind
Yeah, but if they
glass,
don't,
yeah.
then you see everything in the room.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just don't want to be seen like the project in New York, the Standard Hotel,
Yeah.
become an exhibition corner of Milpas.
Yeah, we'll try not to figure out something
Just-
creative on that. Yeah.
Tip, just to give you a little comments, I am planning on having my second honeymoon at one of those suites. Just to be clear about it.
Full rate, of course.
Okay, so, but one of the comments is story poles, right?
Yes.
Got it.
So-
It's the board's preference to see story poles. If it happens after the planning commission, that's probably okay.
Okay, we will get them up.
I think we should see it before the Plan Commission hearing, because we should forward the comment.
So this is the issue. In order to send it on to planning commission, we have to make compatibility findings. And mass bulk and scale is number one, really, for us. So, and I, for one, cannot make those findings until I
Okay,
see.
fair enough.
see 'em. So I think that's what that's why I raised the question.
But what is the extent of the story pole? Is it
Yeah,
only one corner that we're concerned with, or is it
I
the
think
whole
you
thing?
well, we'd look
Oh,
this up.
I think that, let's answer your question about the story poles. I think that how are you doing it? You should give the public and the board good information to visualize your project. So what I mean by I'm sure you wouldn't put up only 2 poles.
Well, there's a standard.
Yeah,
The
but
city has a standard.
And sometimes, you said for some existing buildings on site, right? We did it before. We put on top of the building up, which include less work than from the ground up, especially 45 feet tall, but have enough corners that you can help the public visualize your project. I would say, at least for this building, you need about probably 15 points.
Yeah, my one concern is the one business has I know it's not your issue, but it has a driveway probably where the back of the building is, so it'll be
To go on either side of the driveway.
interesting how we do this.
Can I help here? I think what we need to do is where the views are important and we're not, the buildings are in the middle of the site. I don't think that's going to be the concern of the board, but it's like getting these corners.
Outer edge here.
Yeah.
That's
And-
where
and
the concern
maybe putting
is.
something
Yeah,
up there.
maybe a couple points around that corner that would help
Right.
you.
We can avoid
Yeah.
those businesses.
I'm
This
not
corner's
concerned.
not as
I'm
much
not
of a
concerned
problem.
about that corner at all.
But at least, I think it's such a visible building. I think the public had to see it and have any
But it
comments.
sits way back off of that intersection.
Yeah, it does. You're right. It sits way back at the face of the California Electric
Yeah.
Supply. I want to make a comment for the applicant and ourselves. As we understand the concern, we want the building to be beautiful from the freeway. We're on the same page with that, and we'll work together with the board. So,
Thank you. Great.
So, Kirk, do you feel you need to see it again before it goes to Planning Commission? Ever see the story poles and then comment?
Well, generally, there is another review
Yeah, there should be one
before it
more
goes to
review.
Planning Commission, and so we have a chance to comment publicly on the story poles
forwarded.
and the height of the building, mass, bulk, and scale, and then we can make the findings, or not.
Right.
So, yeah, we will need to see it
Mr.
again.
Chair?
And staff can coordinate with the
question.
applicant regarding the timing when the story poles need to be up in relation to the next ABR hearing, and we can coordinate with the planning commissioners to make sure they see them while they're up.
That's great.
And we have the city has a handout. It's the visual aid requirements for development applications, and there's kind of a standard description of story poles. It just says show location of major plate heights and ridge lines to be identified in the field. Focus on major ridge lines and wall plate lines along the building edges. The goal is to show a simple box that outlines the mass of the building. And
So here's a suggestion. Typically, before you're going to put anything up, you're going to have a plan of where those poles are going to be and where the strings are going to be. If you don't mind sending a PDF to staff, and a couple of us can take a look at it and say, yes, that'll be fine, or,
Okay.
yeah, if we want something more, we can talk about it.
The one new thing that's happening to the benefit of everybody here is that when you get a couple of points reference up with story poles, your virtual modeling these days becomes really accurate. So you literally could get those points, get on the freeway in traffic, and then take your shot, get the points, and put the model in. So everybody's talking turkey about
Right.
exactly what's happening.
Yep.
Mr. Chair, I have a question.
Courtney.
Were there any comments specific to the building height at the last meeting?
There were.
There were.
Yeah.
I missed that and didn't hear anything specific to the height at this meeting either. So.
Well, we left it open because it was unclear to us the impact of the mass, bulk, and scale.
Sure.
And so that's why we asked for additional photographs to be provided to assist us in determining compatibility.
But there was
And then
no-
there was also comments about the fourth floor massing to look at ways to reduce and break it up.
Reduce
It
the
was to
height?
break up the parapet line. Was the comment,
Yeah, 'cause
I think the height, many board members felt that it was largely mitigated because the height of the freeway is so high at that location.
okay. So it's more an issue of mass and articulation.
I've pitched to the board that size, bulk, and scale isn't always literally about height. And it's about perception and where the public interfaces with the building. This has got a lot of advantages because of the buffering of the ramp and the railroad and those kinds of things. So.
Yes.
Right,
All right, so we have a motion.
What was the motion? We heard comments.
It was-
but-
it was-
Back in 2 weeks
Indefinite?
or indefinite?
No,
It's
Well,
indefinite because
we
the
gotta
story
talk about story
pole.
poles, really.
Yeah, it's indefinite continuance. Back to the full board after story polls. And the comments have been made, I don't know how many, 8 or 10 that Scott articulated?
It was verbose.
And we need a second to that.
Second.
Seconded by Tip. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right, thanks.
Thank you, guys.
You got it. I left, there's one right there. Or do you want? Well, and I give you, no, I have a 12 by 18 of everything I showed. Yep.
It's more of an interest of everybody else. If everyone says the same thing, it's kind of a waste of time.
Could have had him stand up and cheer and stuff.
I think we should take the item that's been waiting, yeah.
Susan, there's a gigantic stack of papers here. I'm not sure how to organize it.
I'm sorry?
There's a gigantic stack of paper here. I'm not sure how to.
Here, Scott.
Do I have one of everything here?
That's, no, I'm going to give you the balance.
120 South Hope, item number 4.
Yeah.
No one,
They were all for it.
I thought it was for the next item.
I did too. Apparently they're all in favor. They're all in favor.
Oh, really? Wow.
We do need those. Thank you. I got it. Okay. Oh, that one.
Lucky I was there. I won't be here next time.
I'm going to get you back in the...
Oh, yeah, you bet.
Courtney, we need to move on. Are you stepping down? Okay. Can you step outside? Thanks.
Let's see. Yeah, I don't think that's us.
Is that you?
No, I don't think it is. That might be.
I think it looks like you.
Full big set.
All right, so this is a new item. Proposal to convert 2 existing tenant spaces into 1 single space. Sorry, Jan.
Sorry.
For an existing J.Jill retail store. It would be 53 square feet of additional entry at the interior mall elevation, as well as facade remodel. Parcel currently has 399 square feet of non-residential floor area available for future development. Okay, and I guess we could take action, but there's tier 2 stormwater issue there apparently. It's not resolved.
Correct. So tonight we'll be asking for project approval, and that's as far as we can get until we resolve the stormwater. And we can speak to that a little bit. So, okay, good evening. I'm Ryan Mills with DMHA. We're presenting tonight on behalf of Shrem Shock Group out of Ohio. They're rolling out new J.Jill storefronts nationwide as sort of a branding exercise. I'd like to start. Scott, do you mind the photos? The only photos we have are in that book.
Are we missing a quorum?
Oh.
We need one more.
You know where Tip is?
Where'd Tip go?
Oh, where's Tip? You might be in the hallway making a phone call.
Is this one a new location in the mall?
Yes.
Okay.
From our last
No,
corner.
Where it is currently, it's
Yeah,
on the corner?
I'll
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, I said
Are you available? Go ahead.
Okay. So quick tour. So I'll point to us. Yes. So the question was, this is a new location. So currently, when you last saw kind of a general, the redesign of Building H, it was on this corner. Now they've relocated. So it's across the way. Remember, Starbucks is on the parking lot side here. So it's really the inside only of the mall there.
Okay.
Here's some, just for context, kind of the views of inside the mall will be along this side. This is looking down towards the department store.
Which storefront is it, this one?
Yeah, it's these two.
Jamboree's going away?
No, I'm sorry, let me see.
What's going away?
Jamboree's going away? My kid's
Our
almost
favorite.
aged out of that. Anyway.
Yes, it's actually, I'm showing context here. It's these two, this one and this one.
Okay. Oh, so these are the spaces?
Yeah. Yeah. And then this is looking just south of that. You're familiar with Tiffany. A few more shots, some more context. So storefronts, and this will become important. Why the project is addition, because there's been so many sort of bumps, ins and outs along the way that now they're kind of connecting the two to one.
Is this the one with the corrugated?
No, that's across.
that was
That's all that building age.
Okay,
This is
gotcha.
across the way.
Okay.
So that's context for photos. And let's jump in. So here's that site. That was previously that corner. Now we're right here in the middle there. Here's the demo plan, which helps describe. So here's the,
That's going to be giant.
yeah, so here's the two storefronts. So we have two kind of exterior bump out displays, pops in for the entry doors, and then this one sort of has this little swag to it, but you kind of see how we go up and back and forth over that tenant line. So now they're kind of making one clean swoop at that. Here's the proposed plan. So this represents all addition. At the end of the day, I believe it was 53 square foot addition. So now from the structure, we're actually popping out a little bit, new plaster, kind of wing walls, and then storefront, all glass storefront, goes inboard to capture the doors, back out.
It's about Bud Clay storefront?
Yeah, and I'll show, yeah, there's some details here. This is a good page to look at, along with maybe the colored rendering. Let me try to do all three at the same time here. So let's just start. How about from the ground up? So there's a new base along the bottom, which is this stone textured tile.
Nice.
And then as we go up, it's butt glazed with a dark bronze anodized frame just around the edges, and then around the door system. The entry doors are the wood with glass panels, and then really the frame of the building you can see is a two-tone plaster scheme. So this doesn't print too well, but it's the lighter plaster here, and then the secondary plaster, the darker color, is all the trim or the surround of the storefront. And then this is a flat awning piece that's this same dark gray.
Flat or sloped?
Sloped. I'll show you. There's a section. It's
Like
just
this.
yeah.
Slope.
There you go. Yeah.
Oh, so this is the awning piece?
No, this
Oh,
is
that's
here.
the awning
This
piece.
is
Okay,
here.
gotcha.
And we'll get to a wall section as well. Yeah, this is part of the plaster. And then here's the awning, and then the only other material here is this is like a stone mosaic set in as like a carpet here. So kind of a gray on gray scheme. A few score lines are happening here, kind of at the trim pieces.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, we'll see in section everything is extremely flush, all the detailing. So it's reglets and
It's a
score
V-groove.
lines and V grooves, yeah, in between. And so everything is in plane, and we'll see in a section. Signage is useful for context. We know that there'll be a separate permit, and we can pull it off the next. But so here's basically at the storefront, at the entry, you can kind of see in context here, literally from like the flashing down, both stucco, the trim and the filler pieces. It's just change of color with V grooves, but it's all flush. Here's that rigid awning, sloping awning, and it's opened on the sides, and then even the storefronts. Very trim, all the way down to even the base stone. Everything's flush.
Okay.
And if we want to poke at any particular details, it just sort of reinforces that. Here's our base, stone base, up to storefront, to glazing. Here's our flashing detail. V-groove, typical V-groove, kind of a fairly small reglet. Here's at the corner. They do along the sides. So here. And what else might we have here? Storefront base. These are the inboard corners, and this is how it interacts with the neighbor. So we return. So this whole storefront, where you say dark gray to dark gray, is proud, and we return to the white, and that's the lease line. So the typical mall will get kind of filled in between.
This is white back there?
Yeah. And that's it. So we'd be interested in any comments on details at this point to move forward.
Have we seen this before?
No, this is the first
Brand
time.
new.
Yep.
So the reason you're flushing that out, because that's what they do. Is that right?
That's
Wasn't-
right. That's right. This is the national brand coming through wanting comment. And, you know, for this particular location, you know, as they looked around, they know per the mall guidelines, the interior board facades can go this route.
There's black silicone background.
Public comment?
No, we're not. We need questions first.
I don't have any questions.
Any questions?
Oh, I thought public comment before question.
Oh, yeah. Well, there's no one in the
There's no
public.
one in the
so,
room.
yeah, but thanks for mentioning
They
that,
didn't
and
want
yeah,
to
we'll go
see
on to
me.
questions from the board. Go ahead, Tip.
So the awning material, what do you have in mind for it?
It's right here. It's,
Fabric.
yeah, it's a fabric on it.
And it's, I assume it's open-ended
It is, yeah.
and just straight out?
That's right, and that's one thing they have a fair amount of details on the storefronts, but not much else on the awning. So we're going to be asking for a little more awning detail. But from the notes they do have, it's rigid frame that's open-ended, and we presume it's in dark metal.
Who did the drawings?
Oh, you missed that. But this is Shrem Shock Group. They're rolling out all. This is the new J. Jill storefront nationwide.
So what's so special about the design? Do we have certain concept that we ask you to sell?
That's a great question, Tip. I don't know.
Like, do we have a certain color scheme or certain, or we just
They do
something up?
Yeah, they do. I mean, there's sort of this, shades of gray color scheme. There's a couple types we've seen coming through. There's sort of, gray to dark with the black trim and dark awnings, or some of the interior malls we've seen, they use a gray to white scheme. But so for this, they have a couple they're rolling out.
A couple questions.
Sure.
Is the parapet painted or stainless steel, or what is
The flashing?
Yeah.
This they
Oh,
called
painted to
out
match.
of painted to match this the darker of the gray plaster.
Is there a detail for how the pieces come together? Because it's not one piece of metal.
Of the flashing?
Yeah.
No, we didn't see any. I know in past we've noted to
Okay. Do some sort
do
of
some
with a backing or
or
something.
welded joints. I think is
Welded joints.
Yeah.
All right.
Which we expect a lot.
How do they turn out?
I'm not sure. A lot of them haven't been built yet.
Okay.
You do see the seam
Yeah,
generally.
right.
Yeah.
But, it's better than lapping and having them get all
Yeah.
kinked.
Right.
And,
You can lap or you can
Sure.
backfill and butt joint.
Yeah.
And what's behind the awning?
9 feet.
Is it just
Is there a light?
Um,
Is there lighting
it's-
back there or anything?
The
like
only lighting is, let's see, there's
think there's room for
let's go. You can
anything.
see in there's an RCP. The only lighting there is here is over the entry. There's no exterior lighting except for under the bulkhead there.
But the awning that stands along the lane, is
And then
plaster behind there?
Yeah, behind the awning, is plastered to match. I believe the lighter color. It was in the wall section. I saw that. If you want to.
And do you have the door color on your color board?
The door color?
Wood.
Is it wood?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's the wood doors.
Okay, got it. It's red in that.
So, yeah, like you said, the plaster. So same plaster finish.
Got it. Okay.
Fresco plaster finish is different than plaster finish. Fresco plaster finish, plaster finish.
What is a fresco finish?
I don't know.
You don't
Like it's got a little texture or something.
Well, let me ask. To be honest, I don't know
Where did I
what
see
they meant by that.
Like this, on the elevations, it looks like they're texturing it. But,
Is that like Italian for Spanish lace, or what does that mean?
And it might be helpful to bring. I didn't want to introduce any new material that wasn't from them, but what might be helpful is some photo imagery of these existing storefronts, because it's actually the stucco finish appears quite smooth to me.
Other questions? No. Comments? Skip?
Yes,
Skip?
I myself find this renovation extremely boring. I think it's not traditional, it's not modern. I find that I'm even surprised that your mom would approve this. I think that you group two together, and I think it lacks details, creativity, and I think that it could be much better in terms of how the awning, the plaster, and everything. So I just don't see how this go into the mall. That's my opinion.
Okay. Scott?
I agree with Chip to some extent. My first thought, it was a little dour looking. And maybe oftentimes when you see retail rendered, they just have a ton of bright colors in the storefronts, and that kind of carries the day. And when I kind of look at it from that perspective, lots of light and color on the inside of the glass, I thought, well, maybe it's okay. I mean, the materials are certainly nice, and the detailing's very nice. So I'm sympathetic to Chip's comment, but it may come off looking very, very sleek. So I don't know if I'd rule it out entirely.
Right.
Go ahead, Stephanie. Thoughts?
My only comment is to address the flatness of it, and I kind of like the detailing and the modern look of it. The only thing I would suggest doing is reversing the window detail so that there's more of a, where's that? Reversing the window so it's flush with the interior side, and maybe this has a little slope to it to provide that drainage, but it would be in the same location. It would just be, this would be inward a little bit,
set back.
And that's the only change I would suggest.
Do you have, I didn't notice, are any of your drawings show what's adjacent?
No, other than photos, that photo book. Let's see, we can take a look at that. Nothing in the drawings, no.
Okay.
That's something we'd like to see.
Well, maybe let's look at the photo book again, just if we may. It's my impression, and I hear what board members are saying, but, you know, we've got a mall that's got a lot going on. And, you know, if it was a standalone building, you know, you say, oh, yeah, it's, you know, Dullsville. But to me, it's a relief.
From the variety.
From the variety.
I agree.
I believe we're sandwiched between Tiffany and what was Ruth's Chris.
Yeah.
And I agree with that. I think relief from what, but I think that it's simplicity is good.
And it's also, you know, picking up nicely kind of the simplicity of other more modern storefronts that are nearby. And I could see how for a clothing store to have something that's very subdued as a backdrop to the items that you're actually trying to sell makes a lot of sense to me rather than having an elaborate. So I'm okay with it. And so I think we have 2 board members at least who are okay with it. And but we probably need to. I don't know, where are you, Scott?
Where are you,
on it?
Scott?
Do you think it's acceptable or not?
I think it's acceptable.
Okay, all right. So just a few minor items I think that we would like to see resolved is, rigid frame, what's the color, material, and, what does that look like in more detail?
Of the awning.
For the awning, yes. Just show how the joints are handled at the cap, the sheet metal cap, the parapet. Provide further explanation of what different types of plaster finishes are occurring. And there was a suggestion to move the glass to the back of the window frame to give a little relief at the front of the building, other storefront. But it seems to me that could go back to the consent calendar with those comments. If someone's willing to make that motion.
I'm willing to make that motion.
Stephanie?
Indefinite to consent?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Unless you wanted to make it 1 week. Okay. No. And seconded by Scott. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
1 opposed.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Ryan.
You're very welcome.
Keeping it brief.
And we'll just keep that one set.
Now we're right on schedule.
Look at that.
We're supposed to be starting back.
You know what, though, if we can just get a kind of a colored copy.
226 South Voluntario Street. This is a new item, proposal to demolish an existing 1,095 square foot, 1-story dwelling unit and construct a new 1,441 square foot, 2-story duplex, Building A, and new 935 square foot, 2-story dwelling unit, Building B, under the average unit density incentive program. 3 existing buildings, C, D, and those will remain unchanged. 2 new uncovered parking spaces are proposed, resulting in a total of 3 covered and 2 uncovered, and some other miscellaneous detail. And this is comments only, because an environmental assessment needs to be done. Welcome.
I'm Shelby. I'm the planner for this project. First, I brought a couple more photos to show you a little more context about the project. This is the site, 226 South Ontario. So you can see it's this long site right here. And the first photo, this is sort of a street elevation showing it. In photos 2, 3, and 8, this is the front home that will be demolished. There you go. There you go. Am I on now? Yeah. So this is the front home that will be demolished, where we will be replacing it with a new duplex in its place. Here, let's see. This photo right here is the far back unit. This will remain, as well as photo number 5 will remain too. Again, these photos just show a little bit more of on the project site. This is the building to be demolished, and there will be a new one in its place, as well as a new 1 unit next to it. And then again, a street elevation here. And a little bit of neighborhood context. This is between Indio Muerto and Cacique Streets on Voluntario. Sort of a mix of architectural styles in this area, 1, 2, and 3-story buildings. Here we've got one of the homes directly adjacent to the project.
Here?
Yes, there you go. Get them all tied in here. Over here. The second photo is just an apartment building right on the corner of just about Cacique Street. Photo number 3 is over here, and it's adjacent on the other side of the property. It's an apartment complex.
Is that big white building, white roof?
Yes. Yes. For just sort of looking down the street of the neighborhood general area. The 5th photo over here is on the corner Indio Muerto, just next to this white roof building right there, another apartment complex. The 6th photo is just directly across from the project site on the other side of the street, as well as this final photo is almost across from it on the other side of the street on Voluntario.
Okay, great.
Okay, helpful. All right, before I dig into the plans, what I did is just a quick street elevation right here, just to kind of show the size and the scale of really the two existing buildings. One is the white roof building on the corner right here, and then the other, it's at least a duplex. I'm not exactly sure what it is on the other side of the property, on the right side of the property itself. This right here is showing not the existing, but actually the proposed, the street elevation itself. Where is this building on the second one? That is
the white roof building.
It's white roof building, basically photo number 3.
Oh, that one. Okay,
right
I thought
there.
it was. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. Okay. Right. Let's see, a couple other points. What we're proposing, before I dive into the plans themselves, is really to remove the front building, as Shelby had mentioned right there, and put in a 2-story unit behind, basically 2 units right here, 2 very small units. One's probably about under 700 square feet, and the other's about 750 square feet itself.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
All right. So with that, let's see. Kind of looking at a larger version on the site plan itself. Once again, this is the front building that faces the street itself, and then this is the other building right in between. It's an existing 1-story back here, and then 2-car garage, 1-story, and then this is a 3-story at the rear. So building A, which is on this side right here, which is facing the street. Downstairs, basically the downstairs unit, you'd approach down the driveway and then come in on the back side. The upstairs unit itself, basically there'd be a little porch right here, and then you'd enter and then come in upstairs. Basically, they just pretty much stack over each other, except kind of reversed.
Okay.
The other building itself, the larger unit, which is probably about 950 square feet, plus or minus a little bit, you would enter that right off of the driveway itself, which is right here. Kitchen, dining, living downstairs, and then 2 bedrooms upstairs.
Okay.
So this would be the street elevations here, or the building that faces the street. This would be the street elevation itself. The northeast elevation. Moving around to the driveway side would be the northwest elevation right here. The exact opposite, kind of facing the other duplex right here, back elevation, and then the other property side, which would be the southeast elevation right here. We do have, okay, let me see here. Let me move on to the other one.
Sure, yes.
Moving on to the other one, a little bit smaller right here. From the driveway elevation right here, and then moving right around to the southwest elevation, northeast, and then the southeast right here.
Plate heights?
9 and 8.
On both?
9, yes. Actually, on the front one, I would like to keep it 9 and 9 because they're flats. They're 2 units, but
we can talk about that.
Okay.
All right. We have provided, just as a reference, I think it was part of the submittal package, just the plans to the existing buildings back there, if
Okay.
you're interested.
And it looks like materials, this is all plaster with
It's all,
some little
all
bit of wood?
plaster, tiny little bit of like hardy.
Uh-huh, okay. And same for the front?
Same for the front itself, with the exception of this piece right here. This is probably be hardy panel with hardy trim.
Okay.
Okay. Just on the little piece that pops out on both sides. Everything else would be plastered.
Okay. All right. Pretty straightforward.
Yep.
Anything else you want to present today?
No, next time we'll bring the landscape plan. I just wanted to kind of get a preliminary from the board here this time first. So.
Uh-huh. All right, so we'll open public comment. Is anyone that in the audience would like to comment on this project? Seeing none, we'll go to questions from the board. Courtney, would you like to start?
I don't think I have any questions.
Okay.
Nope. No questions.
How about you, Tip? Do you have any?
Yeah, I'm just trying to relate the floor plan to the elevations.
Certainly.
And I just have a problem trying to reconcile. Like, where's that little porch? Can I
That's
see
on
that?
the front, on the street.
This would be facing the street.
Yeah, that's it.
That'd be the little porch right here.
Oh,
There are
that's
the
a
columns
porch.
are out here.
That's a column. I see, it's overlapping. Way over here?
Yes.
Oh,
Part of that was to get the stairs up the way that we could.
Okay, thank you.
Certainly.
Is there no way to get a usable porch there?
It's a little bit tight. And we can take a look at the site plan if you'd like to. We can go back to that for just a second. I mean, there might be a little bit of opportunity right here because it is an AUD, and I believe that we can, Susan, we have a 10-foot building to building on the AUD project.
Yes.
Okay. So we could potentially move it back a little bit, but then that kind of encroaches into the sidewalk and the entry to the lower unit there. And maybe we can grab a foot or two on this one too. I mean, we're 16 feet at this point. I don't think there was any requirements or anything. Private open space, anything like that?
We do have all the open space.
Let's get to that for just a second.
We have all the private open spaces shown on here.
So there might be a little bit of room.
Okay.
Okay.
Go ahead, Scott. You have a question?
Did your firm do the filling in the back here? Is that...
We did, yes.
Okay.
That was probably about 3-4 years ago.
Okay. And you'll pull some of the vocabulary from that into this in terms of the window colors or?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, a little bit, but not so much on the materials. Basically, the owner at this point is not real thrilled about hardy.
They had problems.
We're using it selectively. Back there, I think it was used exclusively throughout the whole building.
What's wrong with that?
I think, I don't know.
Is it a maintenance problem?
It's not a maintenance issue.
Oh.
No, I think it was just an installation.
Plaster's cheaper, right?
Plaster's always cheaper.
It could be, yeah. Could be. Probably finish, but that wasn't the reason. It was basically it was so that his guys could do the installation itself.
Unskilled. There's skill to cutting it. And there's environmental issues and stuff like that.
Yeah, it creates a lot of dust and everything too. So.
That was it.
Okay. Stephanie?
Can you go over the parking, how these units are parked, please?
Well, let's see. We have starting from the back. This obviously this garage
Goes to that unit.
Goes to that unit there. I would say probably.
Who uses the existing two-car garage?
I'm not exactly sure how it is presently. It was not, presently it's not an AUD project, and so the AUD actually allows us to reduce the parking.
I understand that.
Yeah.
So that's what I want to get at.
So-
So who's going to be using this? Is there any living space around this? Is it just a garage?
No, it's just
And,
a garage.
Well, how many
one
many
unit
bedrooms? One bedroom, two bedroom?
This is a 2-bedroom right here.
Do they, in theory, use that?
Yes.
These people use that. And then this building,
This will be a 2-bedroom also.
it has one parking space, and this is
This-
two units,
there's
and
two
they have
units. We
one
One
space.
space here, yes.
Okay.
Did you say where the trash? I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Did you say where the trash was located?
Great question. Did I miss it?
I don't think we have it on there.
Okay. I'll have that for the next time.
Any other questions?
Yeah, one more question in general about the AAD program.
Yes.
It's for workforce housing, but it's also for families. And it looks like you have a style of living in this, for instance, the flats, that is like 2 master suites.
Well, no, I mean, I would kind of take issue
They
with
each
that.
have their own bedroom, like this one.
This one does. This is correct, but this right here actually has a shared bathroom,
Okay.
and this one, well,
So it's more like a family style living.
it's more of a family style, yeah.
Okay. And
This one,
same
see,
with that.
I'm going to end up having to do it more like this.
Okay.
I can see that.
So the front building is more for a family, and perhaps this one is more for 2 single people with 2 cars.
Yeah, I mean, we can. It wasn't really planned that way. If the preference is to change the bathrooms up and to make it more like this right here, that's fine.
And my concern is that it's underparked, and and I understand it goes along with that, follows the AUD guidelines, but it
Right.
can appear, depending on who you're building for, who's going to be living there in reality, because it's definitely different arrangement of buildings and configuration of bathrooms and bedrooms to who will live there, a family. And a family is more likely to maybe only have 1 car if they have children, whereas 2 single people, obviously, 2 adults would have 2 cars.
Maybe the intent is really more families on this.
Okay.
On the whole project. Also the intent on the AED program is to have 1 parking space per.
Yes.
Maybe if you could address that, Susan.
Yep, that's correct. That's one of the incentives of the program. And it looks like you're providing the same number of spaces as what exists right now.
Comments from the board? Tip?
No comment. I think that it's a good project, and I think I like the project.
Okay. Scott?
I don't think my comments will be any different. I think it's a nice little project. Just looking at the before and after here, is there existing landscaping in here right now that
Great question. Do you have a photograph?
I mean, it looks like this is getting a little bit thinner, maybe about a foot.
That's likely.
And so it's,
if there is landscaping there presently.
Right where your elbow is. It would be this one right here.
okay, so it's where the fridge goes. Okay. All right. No, I think it's a nice project, and the portions seem nice.
Okay. Stephanie?
I would just study that building B for making it more appropriate for family style of living. which I think is more, it's also part of the AED program, and probably more appropriate for the parking arrangement that you have going on.
Can you be more specific what you mean by family related? Appropriate?
So that's more storage, fewer bathrooms, or arrange the bathrooms so they're shared, add more storage. Or perhaps that's the trade-off or whatever. This street elevation is a little plain, and it needs some sort of visual entrance, and maybe that's a window, maybe it's landscaping, something to help soften that elevation at the street front, because it's pretty close to the street, and I understand that's where the stairs go up. I understand how the building's working, but it's just disappointingly plain at the street front.
Is this a wainscot?
Yes.
Okay. Courtney?
I agree with most of the comments. The only thing I'd like to add is, considering the reduced parking, I see that you have bike lockers for both of the new units, and I'd like to see those located in a place that's more accessible and logical in terms of how do you actually get a bike into it. Otherwise, I think it looks good.
Clarify, this is the street view, but I don't see it matching the elevation. There's a window here that's not shown. Is that
That's up high. They put it on the lower level.
You're
the
right.
upper level.
Something was missed
I guess
somewhere.
window is not. Maybe that's,
It's represented
Looks like
different
two
in the
windows,
elevation.
but there's only one.
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll restudy this area right here for next time.
I do think that, it used to be that the board would, and I think in the guidelines too, when you're looking at properties where are developed for multifamily, that the unit facing the street, to make it more street friendly, one of the main considerations is to have an usable porch. And this is the way it's currently drawn. It's more like a covered stoop, really, in terms of the use. So I would like to see if there's a way to, either by reducing the footprints or by shifting them back, to make it an actual usable porch. And I think that means, at least 3 feet between this post and that wall. I would say that would be a minimum. That's the only comment I have. But so we would.
what kind of that setback comes into play? But it looks like it's an issue.
Right, they can't move them out, but they could either reduce the footprint or shift these back. He said this could go back, and this might be able to go back.
We may be able to grab a foot or two on between each building if we can get 3 feet clear here.
Yeah, I think that's advisable.
Okay.
So, and I think you've got you definitely have a project here. There's no major mass bulk and scale problems. Would you like, what kind of continuance would you like?
Indefinite.
Indefinite, okay.
And we'll reschedule Susan
All right.
to bring it back to the board.
Okay, so, and the comments we have, so it would be an indefinite continuance back to the full board. Show trash locations.
Also like to bring landscape next time.
Yes, provide landscape plan and hardscape plan. And one of the things we do generally ask for also is to show pedestrian path of travel to the rear units, not just automobile travel, but pedestrian travel.
Bikes.
Bike lockers are shown. And what was your comment about that? The location?
Locate them in a logical place.
Yeah.
That's
Yes.
easily
So
accessible.
that would be another comment. And provide a usable porch facing the street at the front unit building A.
And to study the fenestration. To study the
Clarify
fenestration.
and I think the elevation looks okay in terms of the fenestration, but it doesn't match the floor plan.
Right.
On the northeast
berm.
elevation.
This is board. What would be your comment on that?
There's a window shown in plan, it's not shown here.
Yeah.
And the porch
So
doesn't.
it's
windows don't match.
clarify window locations and sizes on all elevations. All right. Anything else? Who would like to make that motion? Tip?
Yeah, I'll make the motion.
Thanks. Seconded by Courtney. All in favor?
Sign me up.
Aye. Thank you. Motion carries.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's getting late. We had dinner. We're a little slow.
Yeah.
Make any motions because I'm not going to be here for
Okay.
anything controversial.
That makes sense.
If everything's the same,
It's
just the picture of one of these.
yeah, this is
that's fine. I'm going to take this one.
This one has a lot of errors. That one's the right one. Would you like this? This doesn't match that.
Yeah, because this was the plan check,
Yeah.
but I have to keep it.
I was looking at that and they don't match.
Oh,
All right.
Thank you. All right. Item number 6, 510 East Ortega Street. This is a new item, proposal to demolish an existing 816 square foot single-family residence and detached garage and construct a 3-story, 5-unit apartment building under the AUD program. The project will consist of 2 studio units, 2 bedroom units, and 1 3-bedroom unit,
Yeah.
all totaling 4,807 square feet, an average unit size of 961 square feet. 5 covered parking spaces are provided at ground level. All existing trees will be removed, including a 30-foot tall jacaranda in the front yard and 6 8-foot to 12-foot tall, I presume, fruit trees in the rear yard. No grading is proposed. And it's also addressing violations, current violations. Welcome.
Hello.
Your names for the record, please.
Ellen Bildston, Bildston Architecture and Planning.
Greg Schmant, designer.
Okay. And let's see what it looks like now and then what it's going to look like. Please.
Okay. Well, what it looks like now is represented in these photos. It's an existing single-family bungalow-style building that's set up on a low raised area. This is some site context. This is the building immediately to the west.
Is this being
of our
removed?
building.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's being demolished.
Mhm.
Okay.
To make way for the new building. This is the next house down the street for site context.
Maybe not. We'll probably flip backwards.
And this is across the street.
Might be really helpful too.
Yeah, there you
there
go. That kind of puts it all together.
Look at that.
So this is our proposed building in place of what you saw on this other photo sheet here. So this is what we have today. This is what we're proposing.
Okay.
And here's the context of the street that it's on.
So this is existing house?
Yes, it is. And this view up here is what we have directly across the street. So this is our site straight across from what's on the other side, which is another 2-story housing authority building. Actually, there are a number of them in the neighborhood.
It's about a block from a park, right? Ortega Park.
Correct.
Yes.
It's from that direction up the street. So here's a little bit more context. Girls Inc.
Yeah, Girls
Right.
Inc.
Girls Inc. is right over here. This is the 2-story across the street from us. That's the new proposed building, the 2-story next to it, and the 2 small bungalows that you saw on the site elevation.
Park's down here.
Right.
I think we got the context. Those are really helpful photo images, and the panoramas are awesome. We don't get that very often. Thank you.
That's correct. Yeah, that's the new project. It is.
Yeah, just different views.
So this is a 2-story, the 1-story, and what's this? What street is this?
This is the corner of Salsa Puedes and Ortega. So we're
There's a
here.
roofing
This is
company,
down at the
and
corner.
there's Carroll Plumbing?
Yeah, Carol Plumbing.
So this is about a
you're looking at-
15 or 16 foot
The
tall
housing
building. That's right. Housing Authority has their building across the street here.
Okay.
It would be helpful to mention too, these 4 buildings are one property.
Yeah.
Okay.
These 4 are one parcel?
Correct.
So that's the context.
Down there.
So to the drawings. Do you have that up, Greg?
Yeah, so basically on the ground level, we have a studio, and then the driveway comes on the side with 5 parking spots, 1 ADA, and we'll have an elevator, and bike racks, and a little bit of storage for all the units. There's garbage containers here,
Right.
and then there's a pedestrian path that goes in, which we'll show better on the
Maybe on the
next
next
plan.
page
Yeah.
we'll look. There's some more studies.
So this is the existing house. Yeah. So here we go. So we have the 2 trash here. We have the mail area, the pedestrian area to come into a pedestrian gate. Kind of a nice trellis to kind of give it some look. An area here and some staircases going up. But the ground level is 1 studio. Second level, another studio in front, and then two bedrooms. And it has the common area here, which is accessible from the elevator for the units.
Okay.
And on the 3rd level, we step back from the street, and it's a 3-bedroom that has some outdoor areas, 1 in the back, 1 on the side, and an area in the front. Well, we wanted to show those elevations next, so you want to probably a little nicer than over the front when I was up there. Maybe we'll start with the front. Yeah.
Okay.
So the street elevation, this one here, as you drive through the gates, the driveway gates, little trellis area. This is the front unit below with its open area. Another studio with its private patio. And then the 3rd level is step back, and it has a lot of open area there.
That's the rear view.
Yeah. Rear view has, for the 3-story, has, the 3-bedroom has the big open area in the back. So this is what, the west here?
Yes. Here's the street.
Okay, yeah, so the street here, you can see they opened the terrace here. Try to, give it some relief, some planting, some planters. Same thing on that side there where they have their common, or their open area.
Are these recessed plaster areas, or what are you seeing into the parking?
These are
Or
the
is
stuff, these are going to be, these are the open areas here. These ones.
These are?
Correct. These are solid. Am I reading that right?
Oh, these are openings?
Mm-hmm.
But way back, oh, let me look at the plan.
It's just
There's a
storage.
structural concrete wall, and then there's storage beyond that, just stepping and then going to the building.
Let's see now. This right here, right?
on this elevation here. You're looking at this elevation.
So they just open.
And then those are just.
Yeah, just to get some air in there. And,
So we're looking right into the garage at this point?
correct. They'll, I think for code we need to have a gate or a wrought iron or, yeah.
Or a frosted glass.
Yes.
So are you meeting the open parking garage requirement, or are you venting out through the roof somehow?
Well, this will, if we keep these open, we can meet it, I
It's
believe.
open above.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'll
But this
be
whole
open here.
side is.
I mean,
The whole front's open and the staircase side is open.
okay.
But we'll have to
Okay.
address that a little more maybe.
Because it affects our review. If this is open, the garage, it's a different animal. Then.
Oh, I see.
Okay, somebody could check them.
What else?
11-foot floor to floor, looks like.
Correct. And then we're approximately 33. We have a couple, the elevator shaft and the little entrance to the third floor bumps up to a little bit higher. I believe it's 37 and change. Well under the heights.
Yeah, the height limit. Maximum being, in this case, we're in the CM zone, so technically I think it's 60, but I mean, at 45 is the customary height, and we're still well below that.
And we went with 5 units here. I think we were maxed out at 7.
That's right.
So we tried to give a nice spread of studios, 2 bedrooms, and a 1 3-bedroom to try to have a nice mix.
Is there a change in plane between these two surfaces, or are they just a change in color?
That one there has got, I don't see
There
it
is no
sideways.
change in plane.
Okay.
So this wall is right here, huh?
Yeah, I'm going to put this around here.
Right.
We're looking at the side of
Right
the
here.
trellis.
We're right here.
So it's
Oh, this is openings. I thought these openings are these openings.
yeah, the gray color is the wall, and then the
What I mean is this is west.
Which is this one?
No, that's this.
that's east.
This-
You're pointing at east tip.
This is where the
North
front
here.
is.
I'm
West,
sorry.
east.
Nope, you're right.
This trellis is that trellis.
Where?
So you just have to turn that plan upside down.
Oh, okay. So this is the. But I thought you just said that this one was this.
The other side.
Yeah, it's opposite side. I'm sorry. Yeah.
There's a recess here.
Oh,
So these are just
this
recesses.
doesn't open to the garage. It's just a recess.
Yeah, here it's open.
Correct.
open
Here's,
above.
they're just recesses.
Right,
There's
so
some
he-
storage
Yeah, he
below.
was saying. Yeah, he was saying that. So I was looking at that.
Okay. Does that conclude your presentation, or?
Any issues or anything? I think that's pretty
Okay.
a good nutshell of it. Yeah.
Okay, I see there's no one from the public to comment, so we'll just go to questions from the board. And-
Mr. Chair?
Yes?
Oh, so I just wanted to say we did have one letter from Jörg Jorgensen, which was forwarded to you in opposition to the project.
Did you give that to me? Do I have it here? Well, we should. Thanks.
He might.
Thank you.
House, do you guys know?
Yes, this house right here.
Okay.
With this being our project.
Okay.
So it's the perpendicular around
So
the
he's on all of
Oh, I did see this, several days ago. So the comments are, the current proposal will totally obscure my view of the mountains and will totally destroy my privacy.
Excuse me.
Read it.
Mr. Chair is speaking, so if we could.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. I'm sorry. It's all right. Number one, why should my property rights suffer from another's development? Number two, how could any city organization contemplate additional population? That's not really an architectural issue. So they're looking for parking to be underground with a 2-story. They prefer a 2-story structure with no balconies facing their property, and that all windows facing their property be provided with fixed shutters. Okay.
And then, Mr.
do you
Chair,
know-
sorry.
Sure, yes.
One more thing. You were all sent a memo from Irma and Sweta?
Yes.
And
Yeah, I
did
saw that. I didn't really understand the import of it.
Well, I think they've just picked an AUD project, because I know we've been seeing a lot of them, and she just wanted to put this out in memo form, the staff recommending that ABR review the project, providing comments to guide the applicant in the following areas: neighborhood compatibility character, using compatibility criteria, And then building height. Project is proposed to be 3 stories and approximately 37 feet 8 inches tall. Immediate adjacent properties are developed with 1-story single-family residence and a 2-story structure. ABR should consider whether the number of stories and height proposed for the apartment building is appropriate for this location. And also, municipal code allows development projects proposed on sites which are highly visible to the general public to be referred to Planning Commission for comments at your discretion. So,
Okay.
thank you.
Go to the planning commission.
No, we can refer it to them if we want it to go. Yes.
Chair Pradine?
Yes.
This is really close to the junior high, correct?
Yes, that's
And
right.
close to that Cornell project that we saw. It's about a block over from that Cornell Angeles project.
Yep.
So I'm just putting that in context.
Okay.
What the other projects we reviewed recently that were in the same vein.
Let's go back to those. So we're into questions. And because we just heard public comment, I would like to go back to the context.
Yeah, this one we're back.
The aerials?
It is, yeah, the aerials in, sure. Did you identify where that Colonel project is in relation to this one?
It's on the corner of Coda Street. And
It's
it's blocked
Coda
further
and
that way.
South
It's over here.
Cipuedes,
I don't
right?
even know what they're talking about.
So I guess that would be the question, are there any buildings, in a block radius that are 3-story?
There are several proposed ones. So there's at the corner of Haley and Salsipuedes, which is 2 blocks from here. There's the
People
Pikert
Self-Help, yeah.
project, People Self-Help. And then there's also the Kernal project, which is at Coda and Salsipuedes, I
Yeah.
believe. And I think that's 3 stories as well.
It is.
I've got that correct.
Isn't the one
And
across
that-
the street from the
And that's where
transition
Tega Park
houses?
and the junior
3
high is
stories, isn't it?
adjacent to it.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Oh, yeah, done.
Where's the,
There's the
where's
alley.
Coda? Yeah, there's the alley.
Back here, that's where the Canal project
Yeah,
is.
it's on that corner.
Yes.
There's the 3-story, the HUD, the one that's just right across the street from the alley on Coda.
It's all over
Yeah.
here.
It's over there.
Oh, is it?
This is Coda
And I
along
think there's
here.
another 3-story over here.
And there's the mom's
And the
building at
person-
Yeah,
corner
is that
there,
the
which I think
transition?
has
The
quite a
letter. Where do
tall
they live?
Tower.
634 East Ortega.
634. So that's the name of the block.
We're 510.
Yeah, so it's this-
Ortega, so it would be.
Susan, do I have that
over
right?
here.
The address of the
No, it's got
letter
this.
that I read out, was that 634 East Ortega? Is that correct?
Olive,
Olive.
Olive.
Right.
which is right here.
Oh, the neighbors.
He's
letter.
behind these big trees.
Do you have balconies on that? You do. You have a 3rd-story balcony.
Was that,
There's quite a massive tree
is that
there.
tree on your site?
No, it's
No,
not
that's
his.
The
on
leaves
his
come over
site.
onto the property, the tree branches.
And the back end of our building ends at 2 stories. And there's a bit of a balcony area for the 3rd story. So this is directly behind the neighbor's
Tree.
property,
Mhm.
behind their tree,
Correct.
yeah. There you
This
go.
property begins right about here and goes that way.
Right.
Are these all single-family homes here?
Can you pull up that street view These are again? not.
R2s, aren't they? Are they like
Maybe
duplexes?
No, they're not.
These are like duplexes, I believe. These units.
This is a duplex?
I think so, aren't they?
Might even be a 3-plex.
Okay.
It's a little bit,
It's
it's a little bit deceptive because if you've got an 11-foot plate, and they've probably got an 8-foot plate here, and yet they're
Well, the trellises.
We have a 10-foot plate with 1 foot of
11-foot
structure.
floor to floor.
Exactly.
The garage head height is like quite a bit higher.
There's some
Well, they're
perspective going
they're
on
actually
here,
they're
too.
the level, the
Street is sloping.
correct, and does step up.
There's a 12-foot difference from the bottom of the street to the top corner. We actually went
Oh.
through pretty carefully to make sure this actually worked.
From one end
Uh-huh.
of the block to
Okay.
the other.
Conditions.
All right. Do you have any other questions, Tip?
It seems like you, I don't see it here, but it seems like you have done some 3D rendering images of the project. I can see that. I can see from this. Do you have any with you, 3-dimensional?
that show the 3 dimensions.
It seems like you did already, like on this one, and then on these right here.
We didn't prepare actual rendering.
Yeah, did you print anything out?
We've got it in this very small format, but no other than that.
Yeah, the reason I'm asking because it's a little difficult to try to see how everything lines up with the 3-story and.
Well, we did try to just keep the front 2, and except back 3rd story is back quite a ways.
Well, he's talking along the sides as well,
I'm sorry.
to understand where the recesses are in the plaster.
The drawings are not very clear. And it's a little too flat. That's probably why.
Other questions, Tip?
Not for now.
Okay. Scott?
Let's go back to this one. If this is my house, should I be concerned?
Oh, I mean, the neighborhood's going to be changing. I mean,
But this, that property there, excuse me, is it okay to talk?
Yep.
That property there is a big property, commercial zone. Someday that's going to be a massive development.
That's true.
That's too old, that's very run down property under, it's really not doing anything for the neighborhood on aesthetic. I have property, I own property on Coda Street. I own the property right next to them. I go by them. Where's my property at?
You're down over. Here's the alley.
Here's
You're
the
right
alley.
here. You're right here.
Yeah, so these are my three where's Coda?
Right here.
Okay, yeah.
So this is your yard.
Yeah, there's Action. Yeah, here's my back of my property here. So the 2 houses you're looking at right here, this is one big piece of property. So I own up to that piece right there. I have 300 feet. Cottage, roofing yard, cottage. My office is in this one. So
there's a lot of different uses.
A lot of different uses, and I'm really trying to, even here when I purchased this property 18 years ago, I tried not to over max,
So, excuse me, is this your project?
Yes.
Oh, that's yours.
I'm the owner.
Oh, yeah.
This is this project, and this is another property that he owns, a separate one.
So,
I think you've answered the question.
yeah.
Do you have other questions?
And am I reading that photo correct? It looks like, is that one below? Or the street view that had there we go. Thank you. Am I correct in saying that from above this looks pretty dense, but you can actually kind of see through the lower canopy of the tree from his yard to your project? Would you say that's correct?
Well, it's filtered, sure.
Is that the jacaranda?
No, that's a side.
The property.
The front is narrower, and it gets wider as it goes farther back on the lot.
But the perception that there's this vast canopy from above.
From the aerial, yeah.
It's filtered, so to speak.
Well, this big tree's on the property behind.
No, I understand that.
Yeah.
I'm just,
okay.
It looked like it was just impenetrable.
Yeah, from here it looks
barrier,
like it's
but
really
no,
thick,
not
but yeah.
Not like perfectly impenetrable. Those are my questions. Thank you.
Great.
Okay. Stephanie?
Can you talk about the neighborhood compatibility with this regards to the style of architecture that you chose to design in?
I think we were primarily drawing from the materials that are being used in the neighborhood. Also looking at some features like little portions of neighboring buildings that pop forward and picking up on that sort of vocabulary to tie it into the context of what's across the street and next door to our property. We probably have less association with the smaller buildings over here, but these other multifamily buildings that are right in our neighborhood with their, recesses and small cantilevers and broken up massing. That's what we were sort of pulling our inspiration off of in order to tie in dimensionally with the sort of scale of the other adjacent buildings in our neighborhood.
Okay. Other questions?
Material-wise, it's stucco, similar color to the neighboring properties. So
Yeah, some wood.
What's the roof material?
it would be standing metal seam.
I mean, it's 3 stories up.
Yeah, on the 3-story.
Correct.
Yep, they showed, we had a metal fascia, the metal fascia, and then I think
Just on
on
the
the,
front ground.
what's the roof pitch on the top? Is it 1/4 inch per foot?
That's right.
Correct.
What? So I'm thinking it might even, or a dark gray PVC, you know, the dark gray, I'm a roofing contractor, so the dark gray seems to hold the shadows the best. We've done some in Schoolhouse Lane, with the house are looking down through trees on the roofs, and that dark gray is the most natural
Okay.
color.
Courtney?
How many bikes does your storage room hold?
We have
Approximately.
a very efficient bike rack system that we're proposing to use. So it accommodates, we have it's 8 feet long, this enclosure that contains that system. It holds nine vertical spaces for the bikes to be contained behind a door.
Right. And then it appears that you've built out the lot. Is this a 0 lot line, or what's happening there?
It is CM, which allows for no setbacks, essentially, and we pretty much needed that in order. It's a 50-foot wide lot in order to accommodate the parallel parking system that we've got in here. So yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. I don't think I have any questions, so we can go to comments. Do you want to start, Chip?
Yes. You know what? This is one of the project that what do you call it? AUD. Is that right? Am I saying correctly? And AUD. And you know, I'm all for it. And it's just at this point, I'm not sure I have enough information to judge if this project will fit into the neighborhood or not, because I had to do the neighborhood compatibility issue. And I think that you have a project here, but the question for me is the 3rd-story element, and how would that fit into the whole neighborhood? And that's really an issue that I need to feel comfortable with the project. And if this was a 2-story, then I would feel that it's pretty much easy to approve. So because of that, I might want to see if we can have, number one, you can come back next time with some pre-rendering around it, so we can have a better understanding of the project. And another thing I recommend is, depending on the board members, is maybe some kind of story post, at least from the front, we can see what it looks like so there's no surprises when we go up and the neighbors jump out of the woodwork and say, what the hell going on here? And why did the board approve this? That's mainly my concern. Some of my concerns.
Thanks, Chip. Scott?
Well, I find the architecture to be extremely nice. Really beautifully designed project. So it's hard to fault the architecture. I have some concerns about it fitting into the neighborhood. I think there's things you can do to mitigate that. This is an awfully big deck off the back. I mean, it's wonderful, but it may not need to be that big. And quarantining off part of it and having roof here so you're not directly over your neighbor's yard, the one that's concerned, may be a way to mitigate some of those issues. There's a lot of extra deck here that probably won't get used too much. It maybe works for you on the elevation, but probably isn't necessary just in terms of function. You'll have 2 big decks already, so maybe that's another way to kind of mitigate the kind of guard tower feel of kind of being over your neighbors. I don't know if it makes any sense at all, but, this is a neighborhood in transition. I understand that there'll probably be another big project here. You may want to give yourself a little buffer and maybe move these storage closets somewhere else and pull your project back a bit. At some point, there may be another 3-story housing project right next to you. We've seen that in other parts of town, and all of a sudden you're freaking out. We were here first, and how could you dare build next to us? You may want to give yourself a little more planter buffer. I like the fact that you have planters on the second floor. I think that's great. But you may want to future-proof this a little bit, just in terms of, and these will be tenants, so I mean they won't scream as loudly. This is a rental project, right?
It isn't a rental project,
Yeah.
that's right.
Something to consider. And then the first floor studio units, they feel a little exposed. This is the sidewalk here, is that right?
Yes, that's
Correct.
right. With a 5-foot setback.
And so it's landscaping here, and you come into your front door.
Here.
Yeah. It's not a super nice entry in through the garage to the front door. It's very convenient, and but you are in the parking garage, so it feels a little less than ideal. I mean, this is a porch here? A wall porch?
The outdoor living space.
It might be nice to have a nice wooden gate and come in through there, perhaps. And
Sure. Yeah, if you park back here, this
Yeah.
could be the secondary.
Yeah, maybe that's a way to address the street a little better. And I mean, perhaps it'll get addressed in the landscape plan, but I'd like to see some thick buffer here. These are floor-to-ceiling glass windows. It just feels like you're living right on the sidewalk. But on the whole, it's a very nice project. I think there's some funny things happening in the elevation that cause some confusion. And where did the code elevations go?
They're in here. Maybe?
Maybe.
Yeah,
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, with the shadowing. And
Yeah. I forget what the code says. At some point, there's a cutoff where you have to ventilate the parking garage at a certain number of parking stalls. I think you may have reached that threshold, and just on the look of it, it doesn't look like you have enough open space to qualify as an open parking garage, in which case you'll have a big vent stack coming up through the center of your plan. And so there's some confusion. If this is open, this should be in shadow, and it's just a little hard to read. But I like this strategy for kind of breaking down the mass of that first-story wall. I think it's pretty effective. I just want to know, if some people said this is a pane of glass, no, it's solid, no, it's open. It'd be nice to know exactly what it was. But on the whole, I think it's a really attractive project. And I think it's scaling back some of those exterior decks that are the most offensive to your neighbors.
Okay, thanks. Let's see, I guess we're going this way. So it's Stephanie next.
I think it's a beautifully designed building, and the architecture is beautiful. But I think that there are some compatibility issues with the neighborhood, and I'm not, and the mass, bulk, and scale of it seems to be problematic. There's just, I mean, you've broken up the building, separated that front from the back, and you've leveled it and brought it in from the sides a wee bit, but it's still feeling very massive in this neighborhood, and I am really struggling with that aspect of it. Somewhat so the style of the architecture, but less so that than just the scale and height. So, and that's all I have to add.
That's okay. Appreciate that. Courtney?
I don't have much to add. I think the architecture is beautiful. I don't have a problem with the style. I think it looks very nice the way it's been designed. I appreciate your use of planters on all levels and how those kind of are really integrated with the forms of the building. I think that feels really nice. I am concerned with the eastern elevation where you've got kind of a larger, more massive blank wall that happens to butt right up against that one-story home that's pretty close to the property line. So you can see that in the elevation, but also on the survey and plan. And that home may or may not stay there for the next few decades, but it's a concern. So it's that wall. But otherwise, I think it looks lovely.
Thanks. We It's interesting, these AUD projects that are in more residential neighborhoods have a tougher time getting approved for obvious reasons. You know, if you're next door to, say, a shopping mall and you've got big buildings already, to see another big building go in, it doesn't, you know, it fits better, easier in the neighborhood context. But yes, it's true, this could be developed, you know, or it could stay just as it is for another 50 years. So to me, there's a couple of issues. I think this is a little bit, and I know the attempt made, I'm not saying this was deliberate, but I know how, having tried to do these things myself, how tough it is. And you think you got it right, then all of a sudden you look at a relationship and it's not working anymore. And I think that this is, it doesn't truly represent the relationship, for example, to here, because just a small example, you know, roughly the floor line is down about halfway of this retaining wall, and if the street is sloping up, the fact is it's probably a little bit higher. It should be placed a little bit higher than that. And if they were level, and this was, you know, 11 feet to the next floor level, you wouldn't be coming in just at the plate height of this little side shed. This is probably 8-foot plate, and this is probably a 7, just roughly, you know. So this looks to me like it should be up another 2 feet or maybe 3.
So that little building there is 1.5 feet above our site, and then the building on the other side is about 2.5 feet above our site.
So this is above and this is above.
There's a little dip.
Okay. But do you know that that's where you're going to be able to put the ground floor? You don't know. You probably don't know exactly where that's going to go yet. Even so, I think there's, you know, this is not an exactly accurate representation of the relationship, and I know it's very hard to do. So I'm not trying to point fingers, but to me, it seems like it's going to. For example, like this wall is a 3-story wall that goes straight up 33 feet or 32. And it's only 10 feet or 11 feet off of the sidewalk. And this one is 6 inches off the sidewalk. And you've got some plants represented in front of it, but you've got 6 inches. So it's going to be hard to get that kind of plant right there. So is that right?
It's a
5-foot setback.
5-foot setback from the sidewalk. Or from...
Which is the property line.
Which is the property line.
Let's see, so maybe I was misreading the plan then.
Where is the survey? That's probably the best.
Isn't this the sidewalk? This is
That's
labeled
the
a street.
sidewalk.
So, okay, it's a foot?
Sidewalk is here, property line is here, 5-foot setback. So there's the curb.
Yeah, but here's your floor plan. I mean, that's where.
Yeah, I don't know if this is actually
What is
drawn
this?
correctly.
This says Ortega Street here.
This should be the sidewalk right here.
That's the sidewalk.
This is supposed to be over here. Quick pickup, yeah.
So, okay, so I was reading that
No,
as
correct.
being the distance
Yeah,
from the
this
sidewalk.
is actually the
to
sidewalk.
Okay.
This is all landscape,
All right.
5 feet.
All right.
And then it's the sidewalk, and then it's the
This line doesn't
Correct.
exist. Okay.
right.
Well, this is actually the setback
The
line.
setback. exactly.
And we-
So you do have a front yard setback.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
And then
Okay.
we staggered this back another one to be able to be our top level as a small bump out.
Okay, all right. Well, it's still, to me, in the context of what's there and the general neighborhood, it seems to me like it's going to be quite massive. And I think there are ways, as Scott was starting to point out, that you could pull it back, reduce the impacts, pull back the obvious ones are the terraces, pull the terraces back, reduce the plate heights, pull some of the roof lines back, perhaps, if you have big cantilever roof lines. It seems to me you could restudy this and just kind of bring it down to scale to try and keep it more in continuity with what's next to you. It seems to me that could be done. And that, whether or not that would be enough to make the mass bulk and scale acceptable is a question that I think we would have to determine next time. Because to me, it's not there yet. And I'm like everyone else. I like the design work that you've done, and it looks like it could be a very handsome building, and it could fit in that site. But there needs to be some reductions. And I was also wondering if maybe I realize the third floor is going to be the prime real estate on this property. And so you've put a lot of square footage up there, but maybe that needs to be reduced as well. That footprint of that third floor unit be reduced some. It looks pretty generous to me as it is right now. So anyway,
No, I have no problem with that. That saves me money.
Are you guys living up there?
Take it down to the first floor. I love it.
And then I just noticed on one of the drawings that you're showing some glass railings facing the street. You know, that would not be something that would be, just for future reference, that wouldn't be acceptable as a street-facing or neighbor-facing facade. I think that's the other thing that Scott pointed out, that you really need to study where are you creating big impacts to your neighbor. You do have those big side patios, big windows on the sides, looking down on your neighbors, and that's an issue that we're supposed to be tracking. You know? Okay. And so the next time you come back, if you could do some more study, so you're very clear about what your impacts are there. And if there is a big tree that's really going to consume and provide the buffer, that's great. Then that's something we can hang our hat on as well. But if there isn't, or there's openings and it's a problem, then we need to know about it. You want to make a motion, or should I?
Why don't you go for it? You're on a roll.
Okay. All right. So for the next, what kind of continuance would you like? 2 weeks or more?
Be a little more.
Probably a little bit more.
Okay, so indefinite continuance, back to the full board, with the comments that, in general, the board likes the design and style of the project, but the mass bulk and scale is not yet acceptable. And some suggestions were made of how to make reductions. One was to reduce and pull back the terrace areas, the roof lines, to reduce the plate heights, the floor-to-floor heights, and to also consider reducing the square footage, particularly at the third floor. There's concern about the zero lot line construction, particularly at the upper floors, second floor or above, and the impacts to the neighbors. So one suggestion was to provide, even where not required, to provide a means of buffering to the neighbors. Or something else, something important.
Chair.
Yes.
I just one last thing. I think because this is going to a residential neighborhood, I think the story poles probably be required at a certain point.
Yeah. Well, it might be. It might be. I think unless they can convince us. So that was another suggestion a board member made, was if you can provide renderings, that's often an alternative to story poles. If you can, and you've already kind of started that process, so that might behoove you to do that.
But I wouldn't do it after you look at the design, revise it, so you do it only once instead of do it a couple of times.
Right.
I think the other comment would be
The glass railing. You were
yes, glass railings are not guardrails. Glass guardrails are not acceptable.
Let me ask you about that comment. Is it? I'm not so familiar with that requirement. Is it because of its facing?
The reflective nature of it. Yeah, yeah. It's been my experience that we just within the city limits anyway. I know the county allows it in some cases, but the city doesn't. I've never seen, even on small residential projects.
Would eliminate that problem? Or would frosting the glass eliminate that problem?
I don't know if it does or not.
Mr. Chair, I believe there's a project on just block down on Garden that has frosted glass,
guards along catwalks and all, incorporated throughout the project. So.
It's true.
Not to disagree with you, but I just
No,
have
it's a good
noticed
point.
it because it's pretty.
I think that's something we approved
And
very
I don't-
recent.
I
I think
don't-
it set a new standard for the city.
Yeah.
There you go. It's our fault.
Was that recent?
Yeah.
That was a recent approval?
Yeah.
I didn't recall.
Well,
seeing
it was
that.
when I was on the board.
Okay.
Yeah, it came through when I was on the board. Yeah.
Did you want the east wall, the blank wall? Do you want to add that?
I think a comment would be study where the garage openings occur. It's unclear from the drawings what's open and what's closed. I'm torn on this. I mean, it's not that long, and it does have some nice plantings on the top. But this is zero lot line, right? So there's nothing growing in front of it to mitigate that.
Right. I think that falls under one of the comments about looking for areas to buffer to the neighbors, particularly at the upper stories. I don't know if this could be set back, or there's different ways it could be handled. And yeah, I think that covers it. Who would like to make that motion, Stephanie?
I'm a lame duck.
Tip. Okay. Seconded by Courtney. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, guys. Hope that was helpful.
And that closes our meeting for December 7th. Thanks for coming.